Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the October 8th, 2024 Bellevue City Council meeting. Before we begin, I'm going to say a few words about attending and participating in council meetings. Individuals are not allowed to disrupt the meeting. This includes talking out of turn or without permission, interrupting or making sounds when someone else is talking, or approaching council member or city employees who are staffing the meeting. If a person disrupts the meeting, I will give a warning, end the person's remaining comment time, or ask if the person to leave the room for the rest of the meeting. My hope and personal request is that people will express themselves without name-calling, taunting, or disparaging others. I do believe that we are all capable of doing that, and I thank you for remaining civil during this time. So with that, City Clerk, could you do the roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. Mayor Robinson?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Malakouti?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Lee?
Here.
Councilmember Neuenhuis?
Here.
Councilmember Stokes?
Here.
And Councilmember Zahn.
Here.
Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have three proclamations tonight. The first one is read by Councilmember Zahn for Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas pregnancy and infant loss is such a common occurrence, one that is usually not acknowledged, and whereas this devastating tragedy often occurs suddenly, without warning, as a result of miscarriage, stillbirth, preterm birth, sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS, accident, or other causes or complications. And whereas October 15th is recognized in many other places around the world as a day of remembrance and awareness of pregnancy and infant loss. And whereas increased awareness of the causes and impacts surrounding pregnancy and infant loss may lead to greater understanding, support, and resources in communities across the region. And whereas this month honors the lives of children taken far too soon and supports grieving families whose lives are forever altered by the heartbreak of losing a child. And whereas recognizing Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Remembrance Month enables the people of Bellevue to consider how, as individuals and communities, they can meet the needs of bereaved mothers, fathers, and family members and work to prevent the causes of these deaths. Now, therefore, I, Councilmember Janice Zahn, on behalf of Lynn Robinson, Mayor of Bellevue, Washington, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim October 15th, 2024 as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month in Bellevue, and encourage parents, caregivers, and all residents to learn about opportunities to prevent pregnancy and infant loss and support bereaved families when prevention is not possible.
Thank you, Councilmember Zahn. We have Lisa Prail here today. Thank you. Welcome.
Wow. Thank you so much for that proclamation. It was really moving to hear that. So my husband, Pete, and I lost our first daughter, Sophie, to a stillbirth in 2002. And since that time, I've been working with a couple of different baby loss groups, the Tears Foundation and the Star Legacy Foundation. With so many bereaved families that have suffered these kinds of losses, very large numbers of people. And there still is a fair amount, really, of stigma and silencing around these losses. We're making some progress, but it's still slow. And I think, around any kind of grief and loss, we know from research, and just all of you know from your own experiences, that acknowledgement is so important. And that's why, a month like Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month gives us that window of time to kind of focus in and also do some education. But that's so important for us to do. And this kind of acknowledgement is just an incredibly meaningful thing for us, so.
Thank you so much for coming to speak to us
Yeah.
tonight. I think we'll do a picture when we're done with the third proclamations.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, next we have Domestic Violence Action Month, read by Councilmember Hamilton.
Whereas domestic violence is a serious crime impacting individuals of all socioeconomic backgrounds, races, genders, faiths, orientations, and abilities, and whereas domestic violence is widespread and has a devastating impact on survivors, children, families, and our community, and whereas since 1997, approximately 380 domestic violence incidents in Bellevue resulted in fatalities, including 288 homicide cases, 68 suicides, and 24 cases involving law enforcement intervention. And whereas, additionally, the Bellevue Police Department responds to approximately 1,200 domestic violence cases per year, with about 870 incidents in 2024 to date. And whereas historically marginalized populations, including LGBTQ+, persons with disabilities, immigrants and refugees, people of color, and indigenous people, face some of the highest rates of domestic and sexual violence, along with other additional systemic barriers to safety and support. And whereas domestic violence is sustained by indifference, ending the cycle of this vicious crime requires the support of the larger community for courageous survivors. And whereas education, prevention, and intervention efforts to end the cycle of domestic violence are imperative to not only protect survivors, but also to increase public awareness of the severity and extent of domestic violence and its far-reaching impacts. Now, therefore, I, Dave Hamilton, on behalf of Lynn Robinson, Mayor of the City of Bellevue, Washington, and on behalf of its City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2024 as Domestic Violence Action Month in Bellevue, and urge all residents to speak out against domestic violence and support local efforts to prevent and end domestic abuse in our communities. LifeWire is a local agency focused on domestic violence survivor support, from housing to legal advocacy to mental health therapy. We encourage survivors, their loved ones, and concerned people to learn more by calling the LifeWire helpline at 425-746-1940 or visiting lifewire.org.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. We have Patrick Martin, Development Director at LifeWire.
Excellent. Mayor, council members, city manager, thank you so much for having LifeWire here tonight to accept this proclamation. For those unfamiliar with our work, as Councilmember Hamilton noted, we cover a range of services, including rapid rehousing, shelter, legal and mental health services, new free prevention training, and a lot more. And thanks to the City of Bellevue's help, since our founding in 1982, we've reached over 165,000 survivors here on the east side and beyond. But as you've rightly noted in today's proclamation, that work is far from done. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 1 in 4 men and 1 in 3 women will experience physical violence from a domestic partner in their lifetime. Here in Washington State, over 49% of all crimes against persons involve domestic violence. Survivors that work with LifeWire and providers like us across the state come from every background, culture, income, education level. Statistically, whether we're aware of it or not, every person in this room knows somebody personally that has been affected by domestic violence, which is one reason why we are so grateful the City of Bellevue has, both with raising awareness through this proclamation and through decades of support and collaboration, recognized that DV is a fundamental human rights issue. It's why our partnership will continue, and while we'll continue working with the City of Bellevue to build a community where every person can live in a safe environment, free from oppression, and with the opportunity to thrive. And to those watching at home or who are worried about themselves or somebody that they care about, Again, please do visit lifewire.org, call the hotline that Councilmember Hamilton shared. There is always somebody there to help.
You can share it again. What's the number?
The regional DV Hope line is 206-737-0242, or our local member numbers on the site there as well.
Okay, thank you so much for
you.
coming tonight. We'll do a picture at the end, okay?
Sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, and then last one is Indigenous Peoples' Day, read by Deputy Mayor Malakutian.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas indigenous people have lived in the Puget Sound region for time immemorial, and as a community, we acknowledge the land we are on as the ancestral homeland of the Coast Salish people, the traditional home of all tribes and bands, including the Duwamish, Suquamish tribe, Muckleshoot Indian tribe, and the Snoqualmie Indian tribe, and native communities and tribal nations throughout our country have endured centuries of displacement from these lands, assimilation, violence, and terror. And we take this opportunity to express our deepest respect to the original caretakers of this land, who continue to live here, preserve and honor their heritage. And indigenous people have made and continue to make significant contribution to the region throughout science, technology, literature, the environment, the arts, and more. And the city of Bellevue is committed to upholding the values of access, equity, inclusion, and opportunity for local and regional Native Americans, Alaska Natives, Native Hawaiians, and all indigenous communities. Now, therefore, I, Mo Malakutian, on behalf of Lynn Robinson, Mayor of City of Bellevue, Washington, and on behalf of its City Council, do hereby proclaim October 14, 2024 as Indigenous Peoples' Day in Bellevue and urge all residents to reflect on the history, contributions, and resilience of Indigenous people to the benefit of our communities. The city further reaffirms its ongoing commitment to building and strengthening relationships with our tribal neighbors as it strives to effectively serve everyone in our community.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And we have Bob de Los Angeles here from the Snoqualmie Tribal Council.
Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of the Snoqualmie Indian tribe, and thank you for honoring the initial stewards of these lands with this proclamation. For thousands of years, the Snoqualmie tribe had villages spanning the Snoqualmie Pass to the Salish Seas. Areas including Bellevue are usual and custom territories, are trade lines and places our ancestors hunted, gathered, and fished. Today, tribes are job creators, leaders in ecologically protection and restoration, advocates for elders and youth as part of the next 7 generations' way of thinking. By recognizing Indigenous Peoples' Day, cities like Bellevue are empowering Native Americans, particularly our youth, to continue this work in a good way and validating the work of elders and ancestors who dedicated their lives to preserving their way of life. We look forward to meaningful partnerships with the city of Bellevue to help shape sustainable prosperity in all community members for the next 7 generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob, you are the chairman of the Snoqualmie Tribal Council. I misspoke when I introduced you. Let's do a picture with you. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second?
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, next we have oral communications. City Clerk, do we have anybody signed up tonight?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This evening, there are 8 pre-registered speakers. And so before I start calling names, I'll go over a few of the rules that the council has in place for oral communications. So the first is that the total time is not to exceed 30 minutes, and all topics must relate to City of Bellevue government. People speaking to items on tonight's agenda will be called first, and then people, if time remains, people speaking to items not on tonight's agenda will be called. The presiding officer in both of those categories is authorized to give preference to folks who have not spoken to council within the last 60 days or who will be speaking on topics that will come in front of the council within the next 60 days. Each speaker will be given up to 3 minutes to speak, and only a maximum of 3 speakers will be allowed to speak to any one side of a particular topic. And with that, I will call our first speaker who is joining us in person, and that is Chris Marks.
Good evening, council members and city staff. My name is Chris Marks, and I've lived in Bellevue since 1993. I'm here tonight as a member of the Bellevue chapter of the People for Climate Action. We've known for a long time that greenhouse gas emissions caused primarily by burning fossil fuels would destroy the balances that keep the planet livable for us. When the Bellevue leaders wisely joined the King County Cities Climate Collaboration in 2012, it was with full knowledge that greenhouse gas emissions, if they continued to rise, would cause havoc from warming seas and drought, extraordinary flooding, and extreme wildfires. With one clear culprit, burning fossil fuels, leaders in cities across the country, including Bellevue, made critical commitments to lowering greenhouse gas emissions, 50% by 2030 and 80% by 2050. Most of you were on the Bellevue Council that renewed those commitments in 2019, and the 2 of you who joined the council since then campaigned on keeping those commitments. It's now 12 years later, and we have 5 years to deadline number 1, which we must reach in order to make deadline number 2 possible. 2 of those 5 years are covered in this 2025-26 budget cycle. Because the city's reported greenhouse gas emissions have been rising steeply since we saw them momentarily drop during the COVID crisis, the city must take new and strong actions now to cut emissions and reverse the current trend. The impactful programs needed to incentivize and help people transition away from using fossil fuels will take several years to take effect. By looking at the city's own greenhouse gas emissions pie chart published last spring, we can see where the most impactful actions should be. Existing buildings cause 49% of our current emissions, and on-road vehicles cause 26%. Those are the areas of new, highly impactful programs that People for Climate Action have proposed the city spend $9.8 million annually to implement. In the current preliminary budget plan, we don't see indication that the city is truly committed to achieving its greenhouse gas reduction commitments. Without significant budget enhancements being made in the neighborhood of $10 million annually, we fear that the original visionary commitment to lowering our shared greenhouse gas emissions 50% by 2030 will be proven to be merely political rhetoric, but with insufficient political will, as we watch the wildfires and the hurricane seasons become more and more horrific. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Power Burt.
Good evening, council members and city staff. My name is Putter Burt, and I'm the president and CEO of Kids Quest Children's Museum. After 5 years of observing children and families playing in our current water exhibit, Kids Quest staff concluded that the focus on science engineering was effective but limiting. To reconceptualize and renovate this space, we decided to keep water as a material for interactive play, but also to use it as a launch pad to explore what water means to human survival and culture. At the same time, the local Native American community observed that the museum had no indigenous representation in its current exhibits. With help from the tribes, we sought to address this omission by renovating the water exhibit from the Native perspective, exploring the relationship between tribal nations and this precious resource. To advance the exhibit planning, we assembled a community advisory committee that included members of the Snoqualmie, Duwamish, and Tulalip tribes. The committee met with staff and designers to envision a new water exhibit that is not only culturally responsive and affirming to Indigenous peoples, but also enriching to non-Native audiences. The result is Stories of Water, an exhibit that frames water, play, and learning in the context of Native origin stories, heritage, and values. The requested funds will support this critical infrastructure improvements to the water gallery exhibit space and the development of this new exhibit. We are excited for what lies ahead for Kids Quest and are grateful to the city for our ongoing partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sue Baugh.
Excuse me, Mr. Zimmerman, please don't interrupt.
Good evening, council members and Bellevue staff. My name is Suzanne Baugh, and I'm a longtime Bellevue resident and chair of the Kids Quest Board of Trustees. Thank you for an opportunity to speak tonight in support of the Arts Commission's funding recommendations. I have had the honor of supporting this incredible community organization even before it first opened its doors in Factoria nearly 20 years ago. I have watched the tremendous annual growth that gives more and more children the opportunity to experience the joy of learning through play. Kids Quest now serves over 200,000 people each year. It is a place for children and their caregivers to come together as a community and have meaningful learning experiences. Engaging exhibits and welcoming environments are the core of the museum's offerings. Have you been to the museum lately? Have you listened to the absolute joy of children at play or watched a child so absorbed in a project that they are oblivious to anything else happening around them? I just love it. I was delivering items to the museum the other day for Imagination Celebration auction, and a little girl and her mother got out of their car at the same time I did. That little girl immediately ran to the hopscotch on the sidewalk and began hopping. I wanted to hop too, but the items I had were too heavy. Then, because I know how to hopscotch. She then ran up the steps and waited for her mother to catch up. She was ready to play and ready to learn. Or when you step inside Kids Quest and watch a young child experience the first small steps of independence as they climb the climbing tree. First a few steps, then higher and higher. It's a joy to watch as self-confidence grows. That's the essence of Kids Quest. But even as learning and child development grow, building systems begin to deteriorate. Proposed funding from the Arts Commission will be used to renovate the popular water gallery and exhibit and replace a failing HVAC system. It's not fun climbing to the top of a 2-story climber when it's 100 degrees inside. Proposed funding from the Arts Commission would directly support Kids Quest's reason for being, to create learning through the power of play and exploration that connects children to their communities and the world. Thank you for your ongoing support and partnership with Kids Quest Children's Museum and all the children in our community. And I didn't even get teary-eyed.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Chanel Sagan-Sanayatin.
Aloha mai kako, hello all. My name is Chanel Sagan-Sanayatin, Manager of People and Culture of Kids Quest Children's Museum. As you hear about the wonderful things that Kids Quest is doing and working towards, one of the privileges that I get to do is support the amazing people doing the work, overseeing our human resources and diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. I am always intentional about finding a work environment that supports and creates a safe space to authentically be me and reflect the values and identities that I hold as a Native Hawaiian, Filipino, and Japanese woman, mother, wife, employee, etc. When I did my first tour at Kids Quest and was taken to the Story Tree, a climbing reading nook, I automatically knew I was in the right place. It reflected my own children's bookshelf, books from around the world, stories near and far, and books that told the stories of different people, backgrounds, and experiences. I walked into a space that I knew valued stories that branched out of this little nook, using learning and play to educate and reflect the diverse community that it serves within Bellevue and beyond. As we continue our own Kids Quest story, I am excited to support the work being done to our current water exhibit and updated exhibit, The Stories of Water. We hope that this exhibit is a reflection of our Indigenous people's stories of the beauty, significance, value, and life source of water that connects us all. This exhibit is made to honor the original storytellers of our community and educate our broader audience. As a resident of Bellevue and almost 2-year staff member at Kids Quest, it is truly a joy to walk into our museum and constantly be a part of the work that celebrates and creates spaces that our internal and external community can come to feel safe and be their most authentic self. I love the work that we do and excited to see Kids Quest flourish every day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sue Mercer.
Good evening, Council. I'm just back from Jamaica, and I should be on the plane to Kenya right now, but I pushed it off till tomorrow. So I won't see you again until shortly before Thanksgiving. And I want to remind you that the roads still need to have potholes repaired, particularly the Mercer Slough I-90. You need to yell at the state. They're responsible for keeping I-90 passable. And it's the concrete. You come from Mercer Island to Bellevue on I-90, you look at the roadbed, it's very important to keep that in good shape. And if you don't have it fixed by the time I get back, I'm going to go out there at 3 o'clock in the morning and do it myself. There's really no excuse for potholes on I-90. And the same thing I keep telling you about from 148th to 156 on Southeast 22nd. I think it becomes Southeast 22nd Place. It's only on the eastbound that it needs to be improved, but that is a bus route both for the 221 and school buses. And it's only going to get worse during winter. And it can't cost that much to put just a tiny bit of asphalt to make it smooth like the rest of the street. I mean, Jamaica is the pothole capital of the world, and I want us to be the example on how to keep the roads in good condition. And I will continue to house homeless people while I'm gone. I'm expecting some people from Jamaica to be coming up. And Sammy Mbaya, whose mother has the orphanage in Nairobi where I'm going, may be staying at my house because he's bought a house in Bellingham, which he's going to have into a senior assisted living kind of thing, and he sold his apartment here, so he may be staying at my house some of the time. That's just for your information. And I am looking forward to bringing people from Jamaica up here to learn how to eliminate greenhouse gases by regulating the traffic lights properly to keep the traffic flowing. And so I want to speak to you in a minute, because I think if we employ some of our traffic cops to take care of some of the downtown traffic, we'll not have to sit through 5 changes of lights before going 2 blocks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alicia Sebastian.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Alicia Sebastian. I am a junior at Newport High School, and I serve as a co-chair of the Climate Action Team in the Bellevue Youth Council. However, today I am speaking as an individual. I am genuinely concerned because the world is drastically changing due to climate change. For example, Hurricane Helene has destroyed many homes and caused deaths in Florida and Georgia. I have worked towards sustainability by carpooling with other students to school and making other youth aware of steps they can take to reduce climate change. Thank you for increasing the size of the sustainability staff so that we can work quickly on our transportation and building sectors where about 85% of Bellevue current emissions occur. Thank you for your support for work that our sustainability staff and other city staff members have carried out recently, including efforts to move toward cleaner transportation. Specifically, I would like to thank you for implementing Walk and Roll to School Day for October 9th. It is essential that we keep picking up the pace for implementing the environmental stewardship plan to really move forward our goal in reducing greenhouse gas emissions 50% by 2030. Implementing the plan quickly and effectively is important for my future. It is great that we have a larger sustainability staff to work on all projects we need to accomplish. Now, it is time to really look at whether those projects are fully funded so they can move forward quickly. For example, it is crucial that the mobility implementation plan is acted upon to connect bus routes, light rail services, biking and walking paths to reduce carbon emissions. In addition, the Energy Smart East Side is an amazing project to implement as well, and we should move it forward quickly. As a member of the upcoming generation, I urge you to focus on reducing climate change. It is important to be involved in various actions and help raise awareness on this ongoing issue. We ask that you please do everything you can in your power to increase the funding for the Environmental Stewardship Plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Fei Ho.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council members. I'm here to talk about the ongoing issue with the development at the Southeast 52nd Street in Bellevue in the Newport Hills. I want to show you a couple pictures. If you see, this is the front of the house. The house was owned by a beloved local artist. She put her whole heart and soul into this house, and she was really good on the trees. And this is on the trees. Unfortunately, when she passed away, LLC with the builder bought the house, and this is the site plan. And in the site plan, it has a tree table, and the trees such as this tree did not show up in the tree tables, for example. And this tree, for example, in the tree table has mislabeled as a much smaller tree, but even that, it marked as a keep. So in the site plan with the red color sets, the tree protection is required for all trees. And it marked small for trees to keep. But as a result, actually every single tree had been cut off. This tree, for example, it said keep the landscape, it's keep the initial landscape, but being cut down and the lots had been leveled. And on the King County Assess Officer said that this tree, the half size is 4,800 square feet. The lot itself is 8,936 square feet. Maximum allowed size for a new house, which is 50% lot size, which should be 4,468 square feet as a maximum lot house. But somehow this house built actually is 5,693 square feet. I appreciate your attention over the past few months with my request. Stop work order has been in place, but today I want to emphasize that the stop work order should apply all earth disturbed activities because I saw digging started on the site again today, even though I have repeatedly escalated this, including escalated to Deputy Mayor and the Mayor. And I'm here now asking you, use your authority to stop all the work on this site until all these serious issues are addressed. Our community deserves better oversight and protection. We cannot continue allow this kind of activity to destroy our environment for the purpose of the house flipper makes millions of dollars.
Ms. Howe?
Thank you.
Thank you. Our final
City
speaker on our
Manager, can you
pre-registered-
follow up with Ms. Howe, please? I know that, Utilities and Development Services have been in touch with her.
Yes, Mayor, they have, and they will continue to be. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Alex Zimmerman.
Hi, my name is Alex Zimmerman. Yeah, I live in Bellevue for almost 40 years. And because 20% people who vote for me support my opinion, this means you go to different, Bellevue City go to different direction right now. When this council only go to different direction, it's okay. But your employee doing exactly same like you know what this mean? Apple never fallen far away from tree. So right now, I have complained exactly to you, Mayor Robinson, because you by boss CEO responsible for everything. So this complaint, what is I have right now, and I give this complaint back to you today morning. You're talking about your prosecutor and your policeman lie in court and make a perjury for fabricate case of me, criminal case for trespass. So right now, situation very simple. You know what it mean? I make complaint to you, and I want what is you investigate this. You know what it mean? Is this very unique because 3 times before you doing exactly same. For 30 years you prosecute me. You know what it mean? And I'm totally confused. You're doing this because it's Jew, I am a Jew, or because it's a political persecution? So you're acting like a Nazi, Gestapo, anti-Semite, fascist. Exactly. That's exactly what's happened. 4 times prosecute me, and right now this case in court, and I want what is you answer me, because when you not answer, or when they answer, I bring you in court like a witness. Yeah, because you're responsible for everything, and exactly for your employee. So situation right now very simple, you know what this means. We need something doing about this, but we don't doing nothing. 10% people who elect you, are you all Democrat, you know what this means, totally corrupt. You acting like a junta. It's 15,000 people who support you. In last election, this happened exactly what is happening, and I told you many times before. I give you this right now to you, Mayor Robinson, this complaint, and I want what is you personal will be responsible for you. In copy, go to court in my criminal case number 388551BAD. Yeah, it's a 4 times when you prosecute me. Yes, exactly. This is very interesting for me because 3 times before I win. So you're looking what's happened here. You spend money in police forces for nothing. You know what it means? Police office closed right now, work only from 9 to 1. But you spend 100 police working and $1,000 for prosecute me, Alex Zimmerman, because I'm Jew. Stand up, America. We will need bring Bellevue back to America. Thank you very much.
Mr. Zimmerman,
I give this to you. You'll be personal responsible.
you may give that,
Your employee.
Mr. Zimmerman, you may hand that to the city manager.
It's not your business. We with you, we're talking later.
Okay.
I will talk to you later. You're not responsible. You manage. She's responsible. She's CEO.
We do still have a couple of minutes left on oral communications. If anyone would like to speak to the council, please raise your hand,
Mr.
and that
Zimmerman,
includes those online.
Mr. Zimmerman,
Thank you very much for your time. You give me 3 times.
Mr. Zimmerman? Okay, I'm going to ban you next time at the next meeting. I've warned you twice not to disrupt the meeting. Yeah. You need to leave and you're not coming back.
As I indicated, we do still have a couple of minutes left of oral communications. If there's anyone here who would like to speak, please raise your hand. We have heard 3 people in support of the arts item, so we could not take any more speakers on that topic. Mayor, there's no additional hands. I'll pass it back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have reports of boards and commissions. So, City Manager, would you like to introduce that, please?
Yes, Mayor and council members. We are fortunate to be joined this evening by the Chair of the Arts Commission, Lydia Aldridge, and she is bringing a recommendation on the funding allocations for the city's first capital projects and facilities maintenance grants in the Arts and Cultural Facilities Grants Program. So it's an exciting night. So Chair Aldridge is joined by staff in our Community Development Department. Lori Hoffman, our wonderful Arts and Creative Economy Manager, and Manette Stam, our Arts Program Analyst. So tonight we are requesting council consider approving the commission's recommendations as presented, and with that, I will hand it over to Lori.
City Manager Carlson. I'm so excited to be in front of you tonight, presenting this this inaugural Arts and Cultural Facilities Grant Program, as you heard from a couple speakers earlier this evening. And with that, we're just going to go ahead and dive right in. I'm going to hand it over to Manette, who will start us off.
I don't know if this is working. Maybe I try on here. Well, now we're really far. That's our whole presentation for the night. Okay. There we go. Thank you so much. Tonight, we are asking council to consider a motion to approve the Arts Commission recommendations for the 2025-2026 capital projects and facility maintenance grants in the Arts and Cultural Facility Grants Program. Tonight, we'll cover the program overview and the process we took to get to where we are today. We'll go over the recommended allocations, some further considerations, and then next steps. This program was approved in July of 2024, and we are now on a 2-year cycle with a budget of $1.8 million available in this first round. Grant awards are reimbursable. Organizations must have 2 years operation and site control of their facility in Bellevue to be eligible for this program. The aim of the program is to provide a formal process for arts and cultural nonprofits seeking funding from the city for their facility. Similar programs do exist at the county and state level, but this municipal level is additional, and it helps organizations in our community specifically. The process we took for this program in July, we opened the program and conducted outreach to our arts and cultural organizations in Bellevue. We also provided free grant writing support for anyone interested in applying. And then once the program closed on August 12th, the allocations committee, which consisted of 2 arts commissioners, a cultural facilities professional, and an architect, reviewed 7 applications that requested over $22 million. The recommended awards, totaling $1.8 million, were then taken to the Arts Commission for approval in September and are now ready for council review and approval. I'm going to pass it over to the chair of the Arts Commission, Lydia Aldridge, who will go over the recommendations.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present on this really exciting program. So following is an overview of the selected applications recommended for funding and 2 additional requests for further consideration. And I will say that I was part of the selection committee, and it was a very exciting process to read these grants. Behind you is a map of the proposed grant allocation areas. The red dots are the facility locations recommended for funding. The blue dot represents the location of an application recommended for further consideration that we will expand upon later in this presentation. The first application recommended by the Arts Commission for funding is Kids Quest Children's Museum. As you've heard tonight, they are remodeling their water gallery, which will be part of a wholly redesigned exhibit telling stories of water through the native lens. Currently, the flooring in the water area is failing, causing safety concerns. This remodel will remediate the damages, upgrade aging equipment, and support new post-COVID requirements for airflow and ventilation. We would like to note that Kids Quest is also considering a new facility. However, any new facility will likely not be operational for at least 5 more years, and investments in their current facility will have immediate public benefits. The second project recommended for funding is from Theater 33 for the completion of phases 2 and 3 of their Black Box Theater in the Bell Red Arts District. The request covers costs for completed construction, as this grant program allows applicants to request reimbursement for eligible project expenses spanning back to January 1st, 2023. In addition, Theater 33 has also requested funding for purchase and installation of air conditioning equipment. And thank you. And it is imperative during their summer shows and workshops and camps under hot stage lights that they have air conditioning. Investment in an air system will allow the theater to expand its programming during the hot summer months. The fourth project recommended for funding is the American Asian Performing Arts Theater. After the American Asian Performing Arts Theater suffered significant fire damage in Seattle's International District in 2020, the theater relocated to Bellevue, but quickly outgrew their space. This project, recommended for funding, involves the construction of a new 2,400 square foot dance studio as an expansion to their existing space in Lake Hills. This space will host rehearsals and the practice of music, singing, and martial arts. The American Asian Performing Arts Theater has already started permitting with the city and hopes to be operational by their 20th anniversary in 2025. Lastly, the Arts Commission is recommending funding for the Bellevue College's Carlson Theater, which needs significant upgrades. This request will support new lighting, furniture, carpet, and other updates to help bring the theater into the 21st century. Its current state is almost entirely original from its 1972 debut. Only one prior upgrade for ADA accessibility has been made since 1972. These upgrades will ensure the theater can continue to serve as a community gathering space and provide students, visitors, and residents with affordable access to arts and culture.
Thank you so much, Chair Aldridge. There are 2 further applications that are not recommended for funding in this program in this cycle, although we do find the Allocations Committee and Art Commission found them incredibly compelling and worthy of future funding considerations. Up first is that Kids Quest has long outgrown its existing space and has found an exciting opportunity to partner with SRM Development to build a new 40,000 square foot space in the Mercer Slough area. The new space would provide more parking and outdoor space and be incorporated with an affordable housing project serving primarily families. Preliminary estimates for the museum portion of the development are $60 to $70 million, and Kids Quest would need to secure significant commitments by Q1 2025. The Allocations Committee found the request of $20 million outside of the scope of this program, but strongly encouraged city consideration of the project. To that end, potential funding for Kids Quest has been identified within the long-term planning reserve up to $10 million. It is not currently budgeted within the 25-26 preliminary budget, as there is not an existing funding agreement between the city and Kids Quest. Also, due to the size of the dollar amount, council action would be required to approve the agreement per the city's comprehensive financial plans. Any such agreement would then come forward with a budget appropriation increase to access the funds set aside in the reserves. Another project just outside of the scope of this year's program was proposed by Tasvir, our only Oscar-qualifying South Asian Film Festival. The proposed space, called the Tasvir Art Center, would provide office and community spaces, classrooms, and film screenings in the theater. The Allocations Committee believes this project, once a final site is selected, should be considered for support, and we would encourage Tasvir to return to this grant program in future years after a site is selected, and if that site is in Bellevue. Next steps, if approved, staff would inform the grantees of their awards and then we would move into the contracting phase where we'll ensure accountability measures are in place. As a reminder, these grants are reimbursable, so the scope of work in the contracts will need to be completed, ensuring public benefit is being delivered before funds are released. Additionally, all contracts over $300,000 will come back to council for final approval, so council can see specifics about public benefits and expectations. At this time, we ask council to consider a motion to approve the Arts Commission recommendations for the 2025-2026 capital projects and facility maintenance grants in the Arts and Cultural Facility Grants Program. Thank you so much. Happy to answer any questions.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Councilmember Stokes, I believe you're the liaison to the Arts Commission. Would you like to start us off?
Yes, I certainly would. Thank you very much, Mayor. This is very, very, very exciting. I've worked with the Arts Commission for a long time on council, and I worked with Kids Quest last time around when we rebuilt the building and everything, and we had a great success, and they've done everything we hoped they would do, double or triple. We're in a position where we can do these things for the future, for now and the future. And I think it's a great asset that we need to keep in Bellevue and the region. It's not just Bellevue here, but it's the community. And we can do this, and we need to do this. So I'm very happy to move to approve the Arts Commission's recommendations for the 2025-2026 capital projects and facility maintenance grants in the Arts and Cultural Facility Grants Program.
Is there a second? Okay, and then we'll continue discussion. Councilmember Neuenhuis.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. Thanks for the great recommendations here as well. Quick question before my other comments is, can you just touch a little bit on the criteria as you evaluated the 7 applications in terms of what you were looking for and how you came to this decision?
Certainly,
Yeah.
and we are more than happy to send you the guidelines that have these criteria in full detail. I would say top of mind, it's been a minute since I read those guidelines. But I think feasibility is really important consideration. Are these projects feasible? How much have the grantees put forward the faith in their projects? We look at the financials. How financially stable are you as an organization? Lydia, you reviewed them. Are there other things that you remember?
I was also going to say the feasibility of the project and also the community benefit of the project. Yeah. How many people benefited from it and how much, what a wide swath of the community did it benefit.
Gotcha. Well, mission accomplished. I think that really came through, and that's why I asked the question, because I think we always want to invest smartly, obviously, but I think all 5 are just very worthy. Actually, all 7 for different reasons, but yeah, we only have so much money. Mm-hmm. It really, it comes across as feasible, the giving back to the community or a community asset. And, obviously with Kids Quest, which was, I just read in the Puget Sound Business Journal, the number 7 most visited museum in the entire state of Washington. Not just King County, but the entire state of Washington. I hope the other 5 can be as successful in terms of attracting great visitors and consistently coming into the city of Bellevue. As we all know, the economic impact that the arts brings into our city, and not just in visitors, but they're spending money here when they come here, before and after, during, et cetera. So we want to see them all succeed and be successful and help the community with those dollars. And just really applaud that as a council, we're becoming a little bit more aggressive in terms of funding. Want to thank Councilmember Stokes for his continued advocacy and leadership on this commission. And really, the future looks really bright in terms of the arts in the city of Bellevue. So thank you so much for your hard work.
Thank you. Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. Really appreciate your efforts here, the Arts Commission, and you as well. So thank you for that. I think we always wish we had more money to fund a lot of things in the city, but this is significant, and I think the projects you've identified are worthy. So appreciate the effort and ready to move this forward.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you. Commissioner, okay, here we go. Very, very nice presentation and wonderful projects that you have chosen. And however, I feel I'm a little bit amiss by asking some questions of the Arts Commission, especially Commission Chair Aldridge. I always believe, as most people know, I put a lot of value on commission and boards because they are our council members' eyes and ears. We cannot look at many details, and you are the ones, the eyes and ears, to do that for us. So I believe most of it, what you presented, the objectives, the criteria you're looking at, is right on. And the projects you picked, the organization you chose, the discussion, the things that they do, the values they provide to the city of Bellevue and the residents of Bellevue. That's right on. But I do have some concerns and some questions I have. It's really not concerns, but just questions I'd like to get some answers to. So by asking you, I feel kind of bad, right? Because it's like, we need to have the information beforehand. But since I don't have it, and I try to get the staff to give me some additional information, I was not able to my satisfaction. To me, there's 2 levels of the consideration. One is the value you provide us right now. They already have programs which we want. The things you describe, art, culture, that represent things we don't have. We want to have more. And so I think if they cannot be happening unless we provide money for it. Like maintenance, repair, things that will have to happen if we provide money. That I completely support. The portion that I'm concerned with is that if we are asked to provide CIP, capital projects, we don't know whether they're going to be realized, whether it's going to happen. That's going to benefit the people of Bellevue. It depends. So in order to know that, we have to know the organization that's behind it, that's going to do it. Do they have a history? Do they have a record? And you mentioned a couple. There's a feasibility. That's fine. Okay, but what guarantees, what assures the feasibility? I would like to see what process they would go through to make sure that it would happen. Because when we put $100,000, not $100,000, $1 million, how many millions into a facility, that's going to take a few years. And when it's happened, when we spend our money, that's going to remain, going to have impact, value to continue in the future. Right. So they may leave. We just know that Bellevue Art Museum is just out of business. We've invested a lot of money into it, but we're not getting back the value we have for the future. For what happened before, we got our value. What happened today, we got our value. But if we put in whatever's in the future, if they're no longer here, I think we would have not spent the money appropriately on behalf of our citizens, residents of City of Bellevue. So I would like to have some assurance that that's going to be something that we can assure to have. You know, I'm very comfortable with Kids Quest. They've been around for a long time, and they're going to be here. And they've done a lot of good stuff. And I think it's unless absolutely necessary, and the money that we're going to spend, we're going to invest in them. I want to use the word invest. We're going to have, ways to know that we're going to get value from them. And there's going to be some assurance of their performance, assurance experience, all the stuff.
Okay,
So are
Councilmember
other
Lee,
organizations.
I understand what you're asking
So there's
from
a
staff.
couple organizations I have some questions about. I don't have that information. So before I can blanket say that, we're willing to give them how many, $400,000, $600,000, I need to have some assurance that, it's going to remain in Bellevue. We're going to bring value, continue to bring value to the people of Bellevue, so that we are not going to,
Thank you, Councilmember Lee.
not
Do you
serve
want to
the people of
explain the
Bellevue.
vetting process a little bit?
That's my question.
Lori?
So I'd like to get some answers to those questions.
Sure. I might start backwards here a little bit to address the assurance part. So one of the requirements for the program, because we are talking about facility and that we are talking about investments in physical space, and the question about will they remain in Bellevue is a valid one. A requirement is that they had long-term site control or ownership of their property. That was a straight up the requirement to apply for the grant. For any of the grants that are over $500,000, we would record a deed of trust to secure the city's investment in the facility. Does that help?
Can you tell me, all these grantees, grant recipients have already they've met those criteria? They have properties?
Yes, all
They're
the grant
long-term
recipients
properties?
met the criteria before they were allowed to proceed into the
I
grant
was
program.
reading one that they don't even know where they're going to put the site yet.
Right, which is not recommended for funding.
Okay? It's the
Thank
wrong
you.
impression. He said they're qualified.
Okay, Councilmember Lee, I need to move on to Councilmember Zahn, and if you want to follow up or read the packet,
know.
you can get further information. So Councilmember Zahn, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Well, I do appreciate Councilmember Lee asking to make sure that what are those assurances, so thank you for answering his question on that. And I'm really excited about this because I think that so much of the time our arts and culture organizations are running on a shoestring budget. They're focusing a lot more on operations and not necessarily the maintenance of their facilities. And so I really appreciate the fact that we have this grant and we're investing in these organizations. I can tell you that I remember walking through Theater 33 and seeing just how small their stage is. So the fact that they're commingling, trying to get dressed with the patrons, that doesn't make sense. So I'm really glad that they applied. I had a chance to see a practice at the Asian American Performing Arts Theater, the amount of jumping and leaping they do in that small space. So I'm really glad that they applied, and we're going to be able to support that as they expand their space. So I think these things make a lot of sense. And then Kid Quest is just amazing. So the fact that they are actually going to be doing some work with our tribal community is just phenomenal. So those I really support. I do have a couple of questions. One is, although I think it's amazing that, we have a great theater in Bellevue, I do have a question about Bellevue College, which is not a nonprofit or a business, that we're going to take the city's money and support a higher education space. And so I would like to understand a bit more about that. So let me just finish kind of asking my questions. So that was one where I just kind of paused and thought, was this one government actually providing funding to another one instead of them actually getting some funding themselves to do that work? And then the second one is, I do hope that with Tasveer, they're able to find a location, because I would say that they have actually had performances at the Bellevue Art Museum and other spaces, and right now they are not able to really have spaces here. And they do really amazing movies and performances. And then lastly, I just want to confirm that, and maybe this will be in the budget discussion, that the 1.8 million for this 2-year cycle, as we look at our 2025-26 and future years in the CIP, that we are going to have some of that funding going forward. So those were my questions.
I'll answer the budget question first. The funding for this grant program is currently in the draft budget proposal book, so that we can see that fairly clearly there. As for Bellevue College, I think that you've brought up a really interesting point, and it's what I would call a knockdown benefit of doing programs like this. So the question about the theater and its ownership was a key sticking point in the application. You will notice that the award is to the Bellevue College Foundation. We required all applicants to this program to be 501c3 nonprofits. So in this negotiation, in this conversation, the college had to come to terms with itself and how it wanted to manage some of these facilities, and gave long-term site control, which we required for this grant, to the College Foundation, which will now free them up to apply for other funding that they've been blocked from since they were not a 501c3, which might help address some of that almost 50 years of non-upgrades.
And just for the theater itself, they made that arrangement? Okay, well, that makes sense to me. Maybe we should be also advocating as part of our state ledge for, you know, if these are the kind of facilities that we also want to support instead of coming out of our own pockets, advocating for the state to put some more money in. So I'm just kind of looking over there at Genesee. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, staff, Art Commission, for amazing work preparing this recommendation. Chair Aldrich, thank you so much. I think this decision is going to have a lasting impact on vibrancy and culture, the richness of our culture. I love the process. I think that's a record that you start in July and now we have everything. I don't know if that's a government timeline. I'm sure, I hope everyone learn about this fast process. I just have one question. It's not a question, and I know many of these awardees are already doing that. But when we go to the contract, and you mentioned accountability measure and all of those stuff, can we ensure that, especially for capital improvements, this grant funding serves underserved communities? That, again, I know, I'm aware that there are Kids Quest already doing that. There are lots of other, but just wanted to make sure that that's going to be one part of your accountability measure when you go to the contracting.
I'm going to speak a bit about our evaluation, because service to underserved population was part of the evaluation criteria as well. So something we really thought about on the front end.
That's awesome.
In terms of as we go through contracting, that will be a little bit of back and forth. We're going to rely on our friends and FAM to make sure that we are writing a proper contract, and our friends and our legal team
That's awesome.
to make sure that we do that correctly, to have service for underserved populations prioritized.
Congrats, great job. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So I have two questions. Similar to Councilmember Zahn, it feels like the Bellevue College funding should be a facilities charge for Bellevue College, and you're telling us that it's now being taken over by the Bellevue College Foundation, which is a nonprofit. So does that mean that the college can no longer use it for their own things that they use it for? Because I've been to that facility many times for many Bellevue College sponsored events. So how does that work?
The Allocations Committee had a lot of discussion around this, and it will continue to be used by Bellevue College, but they are appointing a program manager, which they have not had in the past, which has been a huge block in providing community access to the space and in the scheduling. And that has been part of the assurances of what will happen with with this new agreement. So it will not just be for Bellevue College events, but will be available for rental for the larger community. And there's a real need for performance space in the community. And having one more, so I think that things we thought about were, this will provide more performance space for the larger community. And it also is a space that is very critical to the younger population in our community, so.
So that leads me to my next question, which is we're all in discussions with a performing arts center on the east side. And I'm wondering, you know, if we were to get that up and running, would that accommodate Tazveer? Would that accommodate the, what is it? The AAPA theater? Would it accommodate all, you know, we're putting funding into all these different facilities. And would one performing arts center accommodate all those organizations, do you think? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, it's a really solid question, and I think it's one that it makes us think about the ecosystem of arts and culture spaces and facilities, because the different types of facilities have different types of purposes. So as we think about our American Asian Performing Arts Theater and the space that they are building, what they're building is a rehearsal facility. A show might happen at Carlson Theater or might happen at Maidenbauer, but that show needs to be in production and rehearsal for several months ahead of time. And those facilities, those presentation facilities, are often not available for rehearsal. So it's the building of an ecosystem of spaces that allow us to have that wonderful night of a show, but everything that goes in behind the scenes to that too.
Lori, that is a great answer. Thank you so much. We have a motion on the table that's been seconded. All those in favor?
I have a clarification for the motion.
Can you what?
I have a clarification for the motion we're voting on.
Okay.
I see that there are two projects that are not asked to be funded.
Right.
So we're only voting those that are funded.
Yes.
So the two that, even though we discussed, they are not part of the thing.
That's correct.
It does not automatically gets funded when you have the money available, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to be clear. Okay, so, thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's take a quick break here before we launch into our budget deliberations. We will get back together at 25 after. Okay. We are back. Most of us are. And we're excited to hear about the budget. So, City Manager, could you please introduce this for us?
Mayor and council members. So as part of the council's budget deliberation process for the 25-26 preliminary budget, this is the first of 3 study sessions, so you'll get them over the next 3 meetings. And during these 3 sessions, we'll cover all 6 of the strategic target areas that guide our investments for operations and our objectives. So this evening, we are starting with our community safety and health alongside the proposed utility rates from the Environmental Services Commission and the Utilities Department. And then we will follow that with our safe and efficient transportation system. So this presentation tonight is split up into 3 segments, and after each segment, the council will have an opportunity to ask questions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to John Risha, our Chief Financial Officer, for a brief overview of the presentations and introduction of our chiefs this evening. John?
Thank you, City Manager Carlson. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, I'm excited as we get into some great discussion on the budget tonight. Tonight we will be seeking information, giving you information only. We're not seeking feedback yet. This is part of your learning process as we move forward into budget deliberations. Joining me for the first segment will be Chief Shirley and Chief Hagan. Then we'll move into others joining us at the table as we go through. Our calendar tonight, again, we'll go through the calendar, a little bit go through the 3 segments, and then between each segment, we intend to be pausing for questions, and we'll take what we can, and some questions we will also carry to the memory bank if they are longer questions, longer answers. Again, we have already had our first and second public hearings, July 9th and September 24th. The preliminary budget was transmitted on the 17th, and over the course of the next 3 meetings, we'll hear on the strategic target areas, moving into your deeper deliberations and follow-up on your issues, getting to recommendations, and potential tentative adoption November 19th. Again, here's our roadmap for the next 3 meetings. Tonight, we're on safe and efficient transportation systems, community safety and health. Next will be high quality built and natural environment and vibrant economy, followed then on the 22nd by high performance government and thriving people and communities. As we get into community safety and health, just wanted to give you a little bit of information and statistics just to help you think about it from the budgetary standpoint. Community safety and health actually involves more than just police, fire, and utilities. In fact, city attorney's office, city clerk, city manager, finance and asset management, fire, information technology, parks and community services, police, and utilities are all contributors to this particular strategic target area. There's about $505 million between these departments in the base budget, and there's about $5 million of proposed additions. Tonight, as we're discussing, our directors will be sharing information about some of the things that are currently underway, as well as some of the proposed adjustments to the budget. And with that, I'll hand off to Chief Shirley.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. I'm very pleased to be here with you. I'd first like to thank the council for approving the increase in the police lateral hiring bonus from $16,000 to up to $30,000. I do think that will help us be competitive with other agencies. So thank you very, very much for that. Tonight, I'd like to highlight actually a few of the requests that were made in the last budget cycle that council approved and kind of give you an update on those. The first one being, there we go. All right, body-worn cameras. I'm pleased to say the council approved the body-worn cameras during the last budget cycle, and that program is up and running. Officers are equipped with body-worn cameras. The officers have embraced it, and our community has embraced it. And I can tell you, I think that it really has continued to enhance our trust and transparency with our community. So thank you very, very much for that. Spider Community Engagement Technology. In an effort for the police department to get direct feedback from the people that use our services, we launched a program, and it's an app where people can opt in and give us immediate feedback after an officer goes to a call for service for that community. We've received up to about 4,000 different responses to date, and from a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being the greatest, we've been consistently getting above 4. That certainly doesn't tell us everything, right? But it certainly tells us we're in the right direction in terms of the level of service that we're providing. So we're very proud of that. Youth engagement, that's another thing that's incredibly important to the police department. So we're proud to say we just completed this past summer our 2nd annual Youth Police Academy for middle schoolers and high schoolers. And it was amazing because for each camp, we received well over 100 applications. For each camp, and we only had space for about 30 or 35. So we're trying to figure out a way how to expand that. The Bellevue Light Rail Unit. This is another program funding that the council approved last budget cycle. We call it Blue, Bellevue Light Rail Unit, and that unit is up and running. Is providing, I think, safe and comfort for the folks that actually ride it. It started back in April, right? And we've handle probably roughly in total about a little over 100 different calls. But I can tell you, we haven't really had a lot of challenges on the train. Probably one of the biggest is someone using cannabis on the train. And I think someone could say, well, if nothing's happening on the train, do you need the officers? Well, that speaks to the high visibility, right? When you're on the train and you're visible and you're engaging people, I think that speaks for itself. So I think the program is being successful. It's in its infancy stage, right? We know that the people riding the train will certainly increase once it goes to Seattle. So I think the program has started off very successfully, and we're very proud of that. Recruitment. Once again, the last budget cycle, the council approved 21 full-time employees for the police department, 19 commissioned officers, and 2 professional staff. Currently, we're on pace to hire about 40 staff this year. Last year, we hired approximately 33. Currently, we have about 28 vacancies. However, we've received a little over 400 applications for our positions. And so we're really focused on our hiring process like many other agencies are doing. I will say this, we've also streamlined our hiring process. We currently now can get someone from application to a conditional hiring process in about 2 months, and sometimes less. And historically, in law enforcement, that could take up to 6 months. So we've done a lot of work on streamlining our hiring process. I've also reallocated some of our resources to patrol so that we can make sure we're providing the high level of service that our community depends on. And I can say we haven't dropped off in our service levels either. We're still able to provide that high level of service. For example, our 911 response times currently is 3 minutes and like 37 seconds for a 911 call. In the police world, that's extremely fast. Typically, if you're below 5 minutes, that's really doing well. And so I'm happy to say we're kind of in that area. And another thing, our overall crime rate currently is about down 7% as it compared to last year. So I say all that to say the men and women of the Bellevue Police Department are dedicated and committed to helping keeping this community safe. So I think they're doing a good job with that. Community Crisis Assistance Team, CCAT. That was another program that this council approved last budget cycle. And that is where well-trained police officers are partnering with the fire department's mental health workers as teams and to help folks that are suffering from mental health issues. They've currently, from January to September of this year, have gone over about 2,900 calls. And they're being very, very effective. I think the community has embraced them. I think our officers have embraced them in a sense of understanding how they can really be a force multiplier. And so they're really doing a good job on that. And Fire Chief Hagan may speak to that a little later. So new investments this year request. We're certainly requesting a domestic violence advocate position. This position was normally funded by King County, but they no longer will be funding it after this year. And it's such a needed position that we thought we need to bring it in-house. And as was said earlier, on average, we receive about 1,200 domestic violence calls a year. And this year, over 800. And so this is a critical position that we think we certainly need. And then lastly, the police captain position. As we all know, the city has increasingly put on community events. And when you put on community events, there's a number of factors that go into play, right? There's a safety concern, there's a traffic issue, a number of how many people are gonna be there. So there's a number of issues that go into play. And this year, the events committee has reviewed about 37 events so far. The police were involved in the planning of all of them, evaluating them, if you will, but we had to staff probably 22 of those, and a number of those went more than 2 days. So it can be labor intensive, and so we feel like we certainly need a special manager to be able to handle and manage those. And that is it. I'm going to turn it over to Fire Chief Hagan.
Thanks, Chief. Good evening, Council. It's great to be back before you this evening. I do have a few items I'd like to brief you on. First of all, the preliminary budget does include funding for a new community outreach specialist that will be doing focused engagement and partnership with historically underserved communities to enhance emergency preparedness and disaster recovery. The position will be housed in the Office of Emergency Management and will help in their charge to reach the whole community with preparedness, response, messaging, and training by evaluating current outreach efforts and designing new campaigns to reach underserved community members. Also included in this budget recommendation is a new position to support community members struggling with an opioid use disorder or experiencing an opioid crisis to connect and remove barriers to treatment. This outreach worker, who has already started, by the way, started in July, will integrate with both the CARES and CCAT teams, and it is fully funded, 10 years of stable funding from an external resource. I'd also like to mention an enhancement to our rescue swimmer program. This budget includes an enhancement to our surface water rescue program by adding jet ski watercraft in 2 locations, both on Lake Washington to the west and Lake Sammamish to the east, 2 watercraft in each location. Our goal is to have this program in place in the month of April this coming year, and the startup costs for this program were made possible by a very generous donation from the Bacon Family Foundation in partnership with the Bellevue Fire Foundation. And we're really excited about finishing the Fire Station 10 project. The budget funds the completion of our new fire station, which is currently under construction. After completion, it will service one of our fastest growing neighborhoods, taking response pressure off the outlying neighboring stations. Funding has been provided by a voter-approved levy from 2016 to fund improvements to fire facilities through a 0.125% property tax that we began collecting on in 2017. Thank you. John?
And at this point, we're going to pause before we go into utilities, see if there are any questions on the public safety side of community safety and health.
Okay, great. Councilmember Zahn, you want to start us off?
Yes, thank you. I'm glad that we started with this strategic target area, because I really appreciate how you framed the fact that it is about community safety and health, so it's a very broad tent with lots of pieces in it, centered on our police and fire as first responders. So I really appreciate the information about how things are going. I'm glad that we're doing good with recruiting and that we're starting the water rescue. Every one of those 30 deaths last year was, potentially preventable if we were able to provide the equipment to help. I did have a couple of questions. So I feel like similar maybe to community court that we're starting with our own funds and then the domestic violence advocate. So it seems like there are more things we're picking up ourselves that King County is not paying for. And I just wonder if there's other things we should be aware of that may be kind of looming in the distance. I know they have a budget town hall that's in Bellevue City Hall coming up, and just would like to understand, making sure that they're actually paying their fair share of supporting some of these things that we're trying to do. And then on the adding the police captain for events, I think that makes a lot of sense. Are those costs part of a cost recovery effort as we do those events? So that's one of my questions. And then on the opioid, having somebody for that, I really like that, having that additional support along with the other outreach people that we have. Are there other lessons learned from the CCAP program and outreach that you're also have in your back pocket but didn't want to ask for yet? Because I'd like to really understand what are the menu of things that really helps to support our growing community and some of the needs that we see in the community through the CCAT. And then lastly, the other question that I have was, you talked about Fire Station 10, and we're really excited to get that finished. I would like to better understand how we're doing with our fire levy. I think that what we learned with Fire Station 10 is that it was costing more than we initially thought. So do we need to do more to look into those investment dollars and whether it can pay for the fire station renovations and replacements that's needed for a growing community? So when would we start that conversation if it's not right now? So those are the main questions I have for fire and police.
Should we put these in the memory bank and have them answered later? Because we have 3 presentations and we're all going to have a list of questions. What do you think? Does
Sure,
that
that's
sound
fine.
okay?
That's fine. Thank you.
All right. Good questions. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you. Well, thanks for your presentation. As probably everybody knows, public safety is number one for me. That includes, police and fire, obviously. I always believe that, your budget should be right off the top instead of asking for, money to compete with everybody else, because people value safety, and that's what distinguishes yourselves from the rest of the community around us. So I'm very proud of what you're doing. But however, we need to be making sure that responsibility have to go to where the responsibility is due. One of the examples I think Councilmember Zahn mentioned, you mentioned the chief also, when the light will come through, we do have some public safety concerns. And I'm glad that we are ready for it, and we volunteered to staff it, because we don't want to be penalized, for reflecting what maybe it should be Sound Transit's responsibility, even though they may have challenges for the personnel, or maybe the quality of whatever it is. But we need to have their financial support to commit to it. So I hope that we will not be shy to let us know that we need to be, asking them to, be responsible. Right now, the passengers are still not as many. So I think we still have proven that we know. It's a good way to test, are we adequately staffed, and what are we doing, what can we anticipate? But when you are bombarded with the number, sometimes, it's difficult, because we have the budget process. We don't have. So I would appreciate that kind of information, allow us to do some more. Similar with fire station, we're very lucky. We have public support. That's one thing that we're very blessed with. But we cannot just all depend on the public's voluntary support, because they are paying taxes already, they're paying fees already. So we need to be aware, and we need to be able to do those things. Sometimes we tend to be heroic. We say, well, we don't want to burden everybody too much, especially the public. But, with public safety, I don't think that's really time to be shy about it, because public safety comes number one. So we want to hear from you. The public wants to hear from you, that we want to be respond. Other than that, I really don't have much to add, except we appreciate what you do. I think the public, appreciate what you do. Every day I just hear good things about it, and know that you guys are responsive. So thank you much. And I just want to make sure that we let us know what we can do, and with our partners, with King County, with others, so that we can support you. Thank you.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. Chief Shirley certainly agreed that adding up to 30,000 for transfers, lateral transfers, great news. I'm glad we did do that tonight. And appreciate hearing all the success you're having and with CCAT and others, and I'm glad we're going to continue to support that, adding to the ranks as well. I know you've been working diligently at that and successfully, so appreciate that. You know, obviously, you know, we're growing, we're getting ready for what's coming, and I think that that's going to require us to make sure that we're paying a lot of attention to what you're doing, and so I remain committed to adding funding in the future. I'm glad we're using what we have now and that you're doing so well, but certainly we'll be paying close attention and ready to support future efforts. I think the captain for the events makes a lot of sense. The events are becoming more frequent, they're more complex. So I think having an expert around that can easily handle that makes a lot of sense. And two, that we're going to maintain our focus on supporting victims of domestic violence, I think is really important. I'm the liaison to the Probation Advisory Board, so I've seen some of the good work that we can do with folks on probation, you know, that have perpetrated domestic violence. I think supporting the victims is really important, and I think that is a critical investment. So just look forward to staying in touch and continuing on with the support. And then Chief Hagan, of course, Fire Station 10 looks awesome. Glad to see that. And, you know, then being committed to maintaining the things we build and the equipment we buy, I mean, that's a value that we've had here for a long time, and certainly one we want to continue with. I do wonder, though, you know, if we're going to, I think maybe need to take a little bit closer look at some of the substantial investments it seems like we need in fire services. And so I hope just over, you know, the next bit of time, not tonight, but that you'll give us some more insights into investments that you think are needed, and that we can continue to have those conversations. And, you know, again, I think it just kind of fits with our approach of just being prudent, but being ready to do what we need and are going to have to do as our financials improve. And so that obviously should apply to our fire services as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carlson, how are we going to make the answers to our questions available to the public?
The questions go into the memory bank, and that gets published as part of the packet. So each week we include responses that are ready in the packet.
Okay, thank you for that. Councilmember Newhouse.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for that question. I feel like we, to be honest, are doing the public a little bit of a disservice not hearing the answers to this, and they have to dig it out of the memory bank. I mean, certainly they're capable of finding it and reading it, but I just worry about the transparency as well, and if those are watching or in the audience, I think, and obviously that would mean cutting down some of these meetings. I mean, we're tackling some big issues tonight, we're flying through, and I appreciate all the questions and the memory bank process for all of us, but my preference would be going forward, if we can cut it down a little bit and then hear the answers. I just, you know, I think it's good for the public to hear that. So thank you for asking that question, Mayor. Thank you, Chief Hagan. Thank you, Chief Shirley, for all the tremendous work that you do. The men and women of both your departments are a shining example of what Bellevue is and continues to be. And as Councilmember Lee said, we're just so proud of them each and every day. So thank you for everything. I'm going to fly through some questions. Well, and additional comments. Appreciate the update and everything that you had in your presentation there. Agree with it all. I'm just going to respond to some of it. In terms of questions. So Chief Shirley, would love to know, you know, we did tackle the lateral hires, which are crucial and makes us more competitive with the area. I'd like to know what else we need to do, though, in terms of retention. And that could be maybe some things that are not too costly or maybe are not even part of the budget process. But that's one of the biggest concerns I have right now is holding on to the great officers that we have right now, because it's just so, as you know, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but it's so competitive right now. And I think Bellevue's one we're constantly looking to poach officers. Would love to know if there's anything else that's needed there now or in the future. So maybe not immediately. On the captain who's going to be handling events. Would that include protests as well, or is that strictly events? So, I know you want to
Protests as
answer, but we'll put it in the memory bank.
I mean, you can give a quick answer.
Okay.
You know.
All right.
Protest as well.
Yeah.
Protests as well. Okay,
Absolutely.
great. Thank you so much.
Unplanned, planned.
Okay, great. You know, there's been, and we've discussed this, Chief, that there's been a couple of, and one on September 26th, some incidents at schools. I'm wondering if the Bellevue School District has reached back out due to some of these incidents at all, looking to reestablish a more formal relationship with BPD to reestablish SROs at Bellevue High School, high schools. Would really like to know that in the memory bank as well. The number that you provided, one incident so far on was that a sound transit number, or is that a BPD number?
No, that's a BPD.
That's a BPD number?
Yes.
Okay. I would love to know if that aligns with what Sound Transit has recorded, unless they're getting all the data from us. But I would assume that their security guards are also reporting into Sound Transit, and do you see that data?
We have access to it.
Okay.
I certainly can request it.
Okay, great. And then how many officers are we currently down as a total department right now?
About 27.
27?
Vacancies,
Okay,
correct.
thank you, thank you. All right, and Chief Hagan, just a few comments here. One, I had made the comment before, would love to see Battalion 102 be whole, and that's in the memory bank already, so look forward to seeing an update to that in the near future. As previously said, we only funded that about 83%, so I'd love to get that to 100%. The water rescue and the jet skis, do we have an agreement with other municipalities in terms of use of those jet skis, or being willing to help other municipalities if needed for a water incident, or is those just for the sole
I
purpose?
think that's a memory bank.
That's a memory bank
answer,
one?
yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. And then just echoing Councilmember Hamilton and Zahn, would love to know future-wise what we need to do from a fire levy perspective, but just a cost perspective, because I too worry about Fire Station 10 costing quite a bit more than originally anticipated, and then projects and updates to other fire stations that were slated to be updated are now getting further and further pushed down the line, as well as facilities to host equipment. I understand that's a need as well that may not be addressed because of this as well. So would like to have a broader understanding of that when appropriate. So thank you both again.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Stokes.
Yeah, thank you. The conversation so far has been very good. What I'd like to focus on really is what you've been talking about, which I think we needed, both the council and the public, for some time to really understand how the police department and the fire department work together. And the fact of the matter is, we are working together in a very good way. And that is very important. All this other stuff, the money, how this and that, everything, is important, but if you're not working together or you're having within your own agency, that's a problem, and it's something we see all the time. And you come forward and you have the data and the things to say, this is what we're doing. And by having the police department and the fire department working together as you're doing is so much better. And it's really exciting to see what we've gone forward in a fairly short time period, given how difficult it is to move on all these things. But the direct and well thought out advances in service in a positive and productive fashion with transparency and collaborative service, police and fire, is amazing. I think Bellevue should pat ourselves on the back, but the next thing is we keep saying, okay, chiefs, let's keep working together and go better, which you're doing. I just think it's something that we can see this thing and that we need to work on, but it is amazing to have to come back in just a very short time, actually, and say, this is what Bellevue is doing with police and with public service and safety, and fire safety, crime safety, and all these other things. And, the city staff and the public the city staff and council and the public also working together. That's another thing that's very important. You read a lot of times in the paper that other agencies, cities and all are having problems, they're not communicating well, and again, that's something that makes a difference. We can do all these other pieces that are concrete and all, but if we don't work together and don't have this collaborative effort, we're not going to get the best out of it. So I'm just very excited with the Fire Station 10 and the police equipment and recruitment efforts that have been made. Those are substantial things that make a difference. And then you get back to the fact that you're working together and really approaching this in a very, very positive way. And I think it's amazing. So keep it up, and we'll keep trying to work on that. And, nothing's ever perfect, but we have also a relationship where we can get together and say, okay, we need to do something else. I need to work with it. So again, you're willing to come and tell us, and we're willing to come and tell you. So that's a very important thing. So just keep it up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, John. I really like this process that you align all of this budget process with our strategic target area. Chief Hagan, Chief Shirley, thank you so much for presentation, and more than that, thank you for everything you do for our city. We appreciate to see all of the report that the previous budget, the ROI was there, and now hopefully this budget and your ask would help the community. I have two questions. I'm going to send it for memory bank, Mayor. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So 4 things. Shout out to the Bacon Family Foundation. That's amazing. And the Fire Foundation for procuring the funding for that water patrol. That's going to be huge, being able to independently do rescues like that. So thank you for guiding that process. I'm so impressed with our response times, both the police and the firefighters. That is key to a high quality of life in a city like ours. And I just am very grateful that we have the facilities to do that and the talent. So thank you for that. Question, you can answer it in the memory bank, but I'm curious as to where our bike patrol went. I don't see it in the budget, and I remember after COVID, we put the bike patrol back in, so I don't know what happened to it. And then I too am interested about how we're going to plan for the future facility costs. Okay, thank you very much. So now we're on to utilities, I believe.
All right. And joining us next will be Director Lucy Liu and Deputy Director Scott Edwards. And I believe we are also going to be joined by the Chair of the Environmental Services Commission. And I'm going to hand back over to Lucy and let her take it from there.
Great. Thank you, John. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to present utilities investments in the community safety and health strategic target area, along with utilities budget and rates for your consideration tonight. I want to let you know that also in the audience, we have Linda DeBalt, Assistant Director for Utilities Engineering Division here tonight. So tonight we are seeking your feedback on utilities proposed 25-26 operating budget and rates and our 25 to 2030 capital investment program. I will start by sharing the utility services that we maintain and manage that are essential to the city's strategic target areas with an emphasis on community safety and health. We will provide a brief overview of utilities operating and capital budgets and proposed rates, and after that, Chair Nezovic will present the Commission's recommendation on utilities budget and rates. We have 4 lines of business, as you can see here: drinking water, wastewater, storm and surface water, and solid waste, which we contract with Republic Services for garbage, recycling, and composting services. While utilities programs and services touch most of the strategic target areas, our services are absolutely essential to our community's safety and health, and the health of our natural environment, our streams, lakes, and wetlands, and the economic growth and long-term prosperity of our city. And tonight you'll hear more about our investments to support these essential services. Utilities responds to Council's priorities by maintaining essential services and infrastructure to preserve and improve community safety and health. Our services and programs are also critical to economic development in Bellevue and are integral to providing a high-quality built and natural environment. And finally, utilities embodies stewardship of financial resources and leveraging innovative technology, and keeping a long-term perspective to ensure sustainability of utility services. And these priorities are a hallmark of a high-performance government. So our services are largely invisible to the public, and they're often out of sight and out of mind. Utilities operates as enterprise funds within the city structure, and by law, each utility have to be managed as a standalone business and have to be financially self-supporting. Utilities does not get any tax revenues. The rates paid by our customers are our primary source of funding. Utilities is a very capital-intensive industry, so we have lots of infrastructure to maintain. And we have a very long planning horizon because we provide essential services that the community relies on today and into the future. Our infrastructure has to be in place before growth comes, and we have to be ready to meet peak demands whenever they occur. As a utility, we face a number of challenges. First and foremost is about half of our budget is to pay for external costs, such as water supply costs from the Cascade Water Alliance, water treatment costs from King County. These costs are outside of our direct control and are not discretionary. Another challenge is aging infrastructure. We own and operate over $10 billion worth of infrastructure across the 3 piped utilities, and that is mostly well past midlife. And so maintaining and rehabilitating this infrastructure is a key challenge. And like everyone, we are impacted by inflationary pressures. Even with these challenges, you can see that our rates are competitive to our neighboring cities. And looking forward, we expect our rates to be even more competitive because of our long-range capital investment strategy in Bellevue. Utilities budget and rates are based on some long-standing city financial policies that are designed to ensure we continue to provide sustainable utility services for many generations to come. Our rates are set to fund the full cost of providing utility services now and in the future. Wholesale costs from our regional providers are directly passed through, and that is so that these costs do not hamper our ability to deliver services to the community. We strive for predictable rates. That is why we maintain a long-term funding plan for our capital infrastructure over 75 years, which is the average age lifespan of our system assets. This long-term funding strategy also ensures each generation that is using our utility systems pay their share of costs. And we invest in utility infrastructure, whether that is putting money in the ground now or reserving funds to take care of future system needs. As utility systems age, many utilities across the country will have to implement double-digit rate increases to take care of infrastructure investments. Our goal is not to let that happen in Bellevue because we're one of few cities in the nation that have a capital infrastructure renewal and replacement reserve. And we really focus on long-term planning, and that is so that our customers can rest assured that they will always have reliable, essential services. This next slide shows our proposed operating budget. It's about $432 million for our 4 lines of business for the next 2 years. So let's take a look at what Bellevue Utilities customers pay for when they pay their bill. For every dollar paid, 49 cents goes to pay for external costs, or what we have to pay others. And so this includes payments to Cascade for water supply, to King County for wastewater treatment, as well as the city and state taxes that we pay as an enterprise function, and payments to the city for support services. While we don't directly control these costs and have no choice in paying them, we are actively working with our regional providers, Cascade and King County, consistent with council direction to address the affordability of wholesale costs to Bellevue. The second biggest expense for utilities is investments to take care of our infrastructure. This makes up 35 cents of every dollar paid. And the smallest portion, 16 cents of every dollar, is for local operational activities going to maintaining our system and delivering services to the community. All utility assets within Bellevue are owned, operated, and maintained by Bellevue Utilities. This also funds our customer service, our engineering, finance, development services functions, as well as the technology systems and the vehicles that support our work. Next, I would like to touch on utilities' key operating objectives for the upcoming biennium. Our biggest objective is to continue our longstanding commitment to maintain reliable, high-quality utility services to the community. As the city's utility systems age, increasing operating and capital investments are inevitable. The need to maintain, repair, and adequately fund renewal and replacement in a timely and cost-effective manner. This minimizes service impacts, minimizes overall costs, as well as the risk of expensive emergency repairs. In addition, we will continue to minimize rate impacts by continuing to leverage external funding opportunities. We continue to benefit from external grants to support our solid waste and recycling programs and services, and the 25-26 budget includes about $650,000 in anticipated grants for our waste reduction and recycling and composting and related outreach programs. We are also actively participating in the Connecting Housing to Infrastructure program, which provides grant funding to allow us to waive connection fees for new affordable housing projects in the community. To date, we've received 4 awards totaling about $5 million to support affordable housing projects in Bellevue. We also have secured grants to help pay for infrastructure investments. Over the last 5 years, we have received nearly $16 million in funding from the King County Flood Control District. Going forward, we will continue pursuing grant funding opportunities to mitigate rate pressures. In the next biennium, we will also focus on procuring our next solid waste contract. The city's contract with Republic Services ends in June of 2028. And we're planning to conduct a competitive process for future citywide solid waste services. The proposed budget includes one-time funding for consultant services to assist us in this effort to conduct research, community engagement, as well as requests for proposal development and evaluation. The new contract will seek to enhance solid waste services in Bellevue, as well as improve our recycling outcomes for the community. The fourth area of focus for us is on utility rate relief. With rising external costs and inflationary pressures, affordability is extremely important for our community, and we want to make sure that community members in need have access to essential utility services. And so over the coming biennium, we are focusing on expanding our utility rate relief programs, and we will speak more to these efforts later on in the presentation. Next, I want to present you with utilities' proposed CIP. The proposed 25 to 30 CIP budget is $296 million. This slide shows the proposed 6-year budget broken down into 5 key investment areas. With the city's utility infrastructure aging, the need for capital investments is growing. We continue to spend about 80% of our capital budget to take care of aging water, wastewater, and storm infrastructure. Our asset management program helps prioritize infrastructure replacements at the optimal time, so not too soon, not too late. Our goal is to minimize life cycle costs while maintaining existing service levels to the community into the future. Our CIP also includes projects to accommodate Bellevue's growth. In the next CIP, we will build a new water reservoir to increase water storage capacity for downtown Bellred and Wilburton. We also have included funding for investments to preserve and protect the natural environment, our lakes, our streams. And so this includes projects for fish passage improvements, flood control, and stream channel modification projects. Utility CIP includes investments also to realize operational efficiencies for our utility work by building a maintenance yard in the north end of the city to cut down on travel time. Our proposed CIP also includes investments to address emergency water supply needs in event of a major earthquake by developing our wells as a source of emergency water supply. To leverage cost efficiencies and to minimize disruptions to the community, the utility CIP is developed in close coordination with other city departments and other agencies such as Bellevue's Transportation Department and the Washington State Department of Transportation. As we look at taking care of our utility systems, utilities values strategic long-term planning in order to inform our future infrastructure investments. We recently completed and council adopted the Emergency Water Supply Master Plan, which guides the city's actions to improve our water system resiliency over the coming decades and to reduce community impacts from a severe earthquake. We also recently completed the Lakeline Management Plan, and that is to ensure that we can continue to provide safe and reliable sewer service to the community while protecting public health and the delicate Lake Washington ecosystem. We own about 50 miles of aged wastewater lines along the shores of Lake Washington. And planning ahead in order to avoid loss of service and to minimize risk to the sensitive lake environment is going to be essential. The utilities watershed management plan is currently underway and it's nearly done. And this plan will recommend actions to improve the health of our local watersheds, addressing rain runoff from roads, parking lots, buildings, and pollutants that flow into our streams, potentially harming fish and wildlife. Also, in the next 2 years, we will update our system plans for our water, wastewater, and stormwater utilities, and the Emergency Water Supply Master Plan, the Lakeline Management Plan, and Watershed Management Plan will be used to inform our system plans. As part of these planning efforts, we will also ensure that there is sufficient utility capacity to accommodate future growth in Bellevue. Next slide, Scott will review the rate increases necessary to fund the utilities' proposed budgets.
Okay, the next slide shows the combined water, sewer, and storm rate increases necessary to fund the proposed budget, both capital and operations. The total utility bill for water, sewer, and storm services is proposed to increase by 7.4% in 2025 and by 6.8% in 2026. Projected rate increases for the outer years 2027 through 2030 vary between 7% and 7.5%. Wholesale costs to Cascade and King County is a significant rate driver. Combined, these costs require over 1/3 of utilities' operating budget. As you can see, wholesale costs for water supply and wastewater treatment from regional providers will drive larger rate increases over time. You also see the rate increase driven by local programs and costs. Local rate increase shown here include funding for our CIP, financial obligations such as taxes and payments to the general fund for support services, as well as ongoing operations and maintenance activities. Local operations rates in 2025 reflect higher city support services costs. Like everyone else, the city is impacted by inflation and we need to take care of city facilities. This shows you the impact on a typical residential utility bill. Our current typical residential bill for water, sewer, and stormwater services is about $223 per month. The external costs we must pay to Cascade for water supply and King County for wastewater treatment, tax payments, and support costs for the general fund will add $9.60 to the utility bill in 2025. Investments in our capital infrastructure will add $4.23 to the bill. Funding our local operations will add $2.75 to the bill, and the total increase to the typical bill is $16.58 in 2025. We have the same rate drivers in 2026, and the typical residential bill will increase by $16.31. We've worked hard to control rate increases where we can. External costs and investments in infrastructure are the main rate drivers. While we develop our budget and rates based on what is needed to sustain services for Bellevue Utilities, we recognize remaining competitive with our neighbors is important. To orient you, this chart compares Bellevue's monthly residential, multifamily, and commercial bills to our neighbors. Our neighbors' 2024 bills are shown here, with Bellevue's 2024 bills shown in yellow, and the 2025 bills shown in blue. As you can see, Bellevue's 2025 bills based on our proposed rates remain competitive when compared to our neighbors' 2024 bills. That said, our neighbors are also in the process of updating their budgets and rates, so we expect their 2025 bills will likely change. You see, some cities do have lower bills. One factor that drives rates is where a city gets its water supply. Redmond, Renton, and Issaquah have their own sources of previously existing well water and do not need to purchase 100% of their water from Cascade like we do. The second factor that can impact rates is the amount of investment in infrastructure. Bellevue is actively investing in infrastructure now as well as in future system needs so we can continue to deliver essential services to the community. We are very mindful of community members who may be in a disadvantaged financial position and utility bills may be a hardship. We have several programs to help. We offer ongoing utility rate relief programs to serve seniors with low income and residents with a permanent disability. This program provides a 70% discount to customers who receive a bill directly from Bellevue Utilities and a 70% rebate to customers of multifamily housing who receive utility bills indirectly from Bellevue Utilities. We have the Emergency Assistance Program that provides bill relief for community members facing financial shock. This program waives up to 4 months of basic utility bills. A tax relief program is also available to provide a utility tax rebate to low-income households regardless of age or physical ability. Utilities administers this program paid by the general fund. And our newest program recently implemented is the Neighbors Helping Neighbors program, which waives up to 2 months of basic utility bills to households that are past due on their utility bill. This program is funded by donations from the community, and to encourage donations, Utilities matches donations up to $50,000 per year. Almost 1,000 households take advantage of these programs, and we spend over $1 million per year to support residents in need. While that's a significant level of financial assistance, the program currently has about $1.3 million in annual funding. So with about $300,000 available, there's room to grow and increase participation without asking for additional resources. Going forward, Utilities anticipates a new streamlined application process developed in partnership with the University of Washington School of Human-Centered Design and Engineering, a new online application portal developed in partnership with our own IT department, and more focused community engagement to help us reach those in need of assistance. Our goal is to make the application process easier and to create a meaningful dialogue and partnership with the community to ensure ongoing program refinements continue to meet their needs. Anticipated refinements will also include evaluating our eligibility requirements. We recognize our existing income threshold is lower than certain jurisdictions in the region. This means it's harder to qualify for our financial assistance. That said, we also recognize our benefits appear to be higher than other regional utilities, which means once eligible for assistance, our program participants receive the most financial benefit. As we consider changes in eligibility requirements, our goal is to remain competitive regionally while maximizing program participation and benefits for our community members in need. Making sure the community is aware and informed of the services we provide is one of our top priorities. We have a robust public engagement strategy that is inclusive and accessible to all residents. You can see here a list of public outreach conducted this year on our proposed budget and rates, including in-person events, virtual meetings, and on-demand communications. This also includes meeting community members in their neighborhoods. In addition, we maintain our public web pages to provide up-to-date information on our budget and rates. Next, I would like to introduce Vanya Nezovic, Chair of the Environmental Services Commission, to share the Commission's recommendation on utilities, budget, and rates.
Thank you, Scott. Good evening, Mayor Robinson, Deputy Mayor Malakutian, and council members. A key responsibility for the Commission is to advise City Council on utilities, budget, and rates. In this role, the Commission represents the interest of utility ratepayers and takes the responsibility assigned by Council seriously. Over the last 9 months, the Commission reviewed the budget in detail. The Commission has closely scrutinized the proposed utilities operating and capital budgets and the rate increases to implement the budgets. The Commission was briefed on public input received during the online CIP open house in April and also held a public hearing in September to gather public comments on the proposed utilities budget and rates. This work formed the basis for the Commission's recommendation. Based on our budget review, the Commission unanimously recommends the proposed utilities operating and capital budgets and rates. Commissioners, as Bellevue ratepayers, are sensitive to the impact of rate increases to customers. However, external costs, including wholesale costs, taxes, and support service costs, are increasing. These costs are not within the Utilities Department's control and will require rate increases. With increasing rate impacts from wholesale service providers, it is prudent for the city to adhere to its sound financial practices. This includes a commitment to the Capital Infrastructural Renewal and Replacement Reserve to continue sustainable utility services and promote intergenerational equity. The Commissioners appreciate the emphasis Bellevue Utilities places on long-term financial planning and rate predictability. The proposed budget and rates represent a responsible and lean budget designed to enable the city to continue to provide reliable, high-quality services. The Commission appreciates staff's stewardship of ratepayer dollars, focus on customer impacts, and continued focus on operational efficiencies. On behalf of the Commission, thank you for the opportunity to analyze the utilities budget, receive public input, and provide this recommendation to Council. Thank you. Back to Lucy.
Thank you, Chair. As a reminder, we are seeking council feedback on utilities, budget, and rates. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lee, you're the liaison to the Environmental Services Commission, right?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is indeed my pleasure as the council liaison to the Environmental Services Commission to have worked closely with the commissioners in receiving and reviewing the proposed budget and rates. On behalf of the City Council, I want to thank Chair Vanya and the commissioners and the staff for their diligence and also good work. Bellevue's utility department is a model for many utility departments in the region, if not in the country. They have a wonderful fiscal responsibility, sound system management, and sustainable policy and practice. So I strongly support staff's proposal and this recommendation by the commissioner. Our utility infrastructure is aging, and most of the system is well past its midlife. It's important that we plan for our city's current utility needs and for our city's future needs. Access to reliable utility services, including life-critical drinking water, is vital for the health and safety of our community. Our city relies on essential utility services for critical functions and services, including firefighting, hospitals, sanitations, and local business operations. The common element in the preservation by staff and presentation by staff is that we prioritize long-term planning and we prioritize being good stewards of our residents' dollars. Strong financial planning is key to ensuring our city has the necessary utility infrastructure in place for generations to come. Thank you to the Commissioner, thank you to the staff, thank you to the Utility and Environmental Services Commission for the time you have put into developing this budget and ensuring that the rates Bellevue residents and businesses pay remain competitive to our neighboring utility agencies. Thank you, Councilmember.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Lee. Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. Definitely glad to follow Councilmember Lee, so I would just echo all of those comments. Thank you for being here in your presentation. I really like the way utilities goes about its business and the comprehensive view you take towards rates and towards our infrastructure and making sure that it's sound. So I think what you've, in a way, it's kind of a no-brainer. I don't think we want to take these rate increases lightly at all, but I don't really see how we have any choice. And I've been there to see how seriously utilities takes the effort of keeping those rates down and smoothing those and how much they really care about it. So I've seen that. So I think what you've presented to us is basically doing everything we can to keep rates down and protect our system. And hardening our systems against natural disasters, critically important. I think you've done a great job. Appreciate the recommendation. So thank you.
Councilmember Stokes.
Yeah, this is kind of fun following the two comments so far. I really appreciate that, and I've worked with y'all for some time. In fact, this was the first assignment I got when I came on in 2012, and I was taken over, and I think 4 or 5 engineers showed me all this stuff and everything. But what I've learned from this is that Bellevue Utilities is just first grade in the whole thing. I mean, not the first grade, the best grade. And we've had working with Cascade Water Alliance and working with the utility over in different times, I think we've all had, and I certainly have had a perception of and learning about how we work with other utilities and what our strengths are, what we're doing, and how it's really great for the public. It's a very complex thing, and we've gone through a lot of issues on this. But working with, and one of the things that that Bellevue Utilities has done has been a very strong supporter in working with Cascade Water Alliance, and then working with the other agencies. So again, that's something that Bellevue is good at, is working on our work here, but also working with the other cities, because we are integrated in things. And we get a lot more out of the whole thing as we're working together. So I think it's just amazing. And I really like the way it's been set up this year. I think the commission did a very good job on putting it out there and talking about it, and making it easy for people to understand, and looking at how the whole thing is put together. But what I really like also on this, and very much applaud for the working with people who need help. Everybody needs to have water to drink. Everybody needs the water to wash their dishes and all that. It's an essential thing for the public. And we do not want anybody in Bellevue to not be able to do that. And that to me is something that is at first rate has always been with Bellevue Utilities. And it's always been very financially sound, and the process has been very good. So I'm very pleased with this and ready to go on it.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Newhouse.
Thank you. Great presentation as always. Like my colleagues, really appreciate the way that always the utilities goes about their business. But I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again, that I don't see this as sustainable long-term, this current trajectory that we're on. I just continuously see the expansion of the utility rate relief, the continuous increases on utilities, 7% every single year. On top of that, by 2044, we've got 70,000 new people coming to the city to work. We've got 35,000 new housing units. I mean, these costs are only going to accelerate. I think more and more people are going to be trying to take advantage of this utility rate relief. And thank you for saying that we have capacity there, 1.3. That's great. But how much longer is that going to suffice before we need to start expanding that? And a lot of this relief as well looked like it was 62 and plus. Some for families, but not. It didn't appear to me not much. So how are we going to continue this trajectory as it is right now? Because a day doesn't go by I don't hear from folks, and I know we've got hard costs, and I completely always agree with investing in our infrastructure before failure, and I'm on board with all that and have seen the great work that we always do. But these ratepayers are already getting raked over the coals with inflation across the board, with housing, groceries, gas bills, et cetera, et cetera. And I know it's not intentional, but we're kind of piling on to that. And I just really am concerned about what this means for those that, working families and lower income families, if they're going to be able to stay in Bellevue with all these rates. continuing to go on. So maybe this is just more of a statement than it is an actual question. And I'm assured that you looked at every possibility to try and keep these rates as low as possible. But I just have this really bad feeling that this is just not sustainable in the long term, and we either need to examine at restructuring this somehow, or changing some of our, I don't know, processes or vendors or something. But I just don't see this again being sustainable long term for those vulnerable elements of our community, for the middle class, lower income families. I just don't see it being, unless they are already on a program where they can have ongoing rate relief. I just don't see it. Having said that, again, I'll go back to, I appreciate all the work that you do and the way you go about it, and the importance of constantly reinvesting those dollars into our infrastructure. I would just encourage you to continue to look for other ways to reduce those the impacts to the ratepayer. Thank you.
I wonder, Councilmember Newenhouse, if we could ask staff to provide us with information on how they might be seeking various grants, federal grants and state grants, to help pay for these.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was actually going to make the recommendation to Genesee we add something to our ledge agenda on this, if it's not already there, to pursue any grants, additional grants, state grants for all utilities, infrastructure, for growing communities like ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Right on this topic, I just add one
sure.
statement. We are working this on the regional level in the King County Waste Treatment Division. You know, we all understand this is a problem. It's an issue. We are addressing it right now. The infrastructure, bilateral infrastructure law that provided $2 trillion the last 5 years, that needs to be continuing, needs to provide us the way to relieve our burden. So it's not being neglected, it's not being unnoticed.
Okay.
We're working very hard, and Bellevue's right in the middle of it. Hopefully we're the leading edge, showing them how we can responsibly do our infrastructure, responsibly, so
Thank
that we
you.
can handle this question you just raised. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, in addition to that, the real importance of working with the Cascade Water Alliance is that we actually follow these things and work on that. And it's not just us. We've got other cities around us, and we've got small cities, big cities. We're all working on the same thing. It's not that we're off doing something that's more expensive or anything else. It's so the issues raised are very, very important issues, but the overall responsibility is to have all of our citizens need to have water. And I think that's the basic part, and then how we work on that. And if we have other ideas on how we could do it cheaper, we can do that. But I think this was something that's been set up for a long time. It's vetted all the time. We work together on this. So if we can find out some different ways to do this, we would be delighted. But just saying, let's keep talking about it because it is something vital. People need water, and we need ways to help make sure they do. And we can't just say, well, sorry, you can't get water.
Okay,
So,
well, we'll let
thank
staff cover that. Thank you.
Is arguing that people don't need water.
Yeah, that's okay.
No, I don't know.
Okay,
I'm
so
just-
let's give Councilmember Zahn a chance to weigh in.
Thank you, thank you. So I continue to appreciate the way that Utilities does business. You're so thoughtful about the utility financial modeling, long-term, and really making sure we have the strong reserves and utility planning. So, what the things that I'm gonna bring up are we have all these plans. How do we make sure that we are funding adequately the investments at the right time? So as you said, not too early and not too late. So it's a little bit like Goldilocks, right? And so when I think about $10 billion worth of assets that we're trying to manage in a thoughtful way, and also the fact that when we are not investing to replace, for example, our water mains that are aging, we end up paying for floods and damages to homes. And so just making sure that we're really thoughtful about that. I absolutely appreciate my colleagues talking about how we're actively engaging with the Cascade Water Alliance and the King County Wastewater Treatment Division to make sure that they're doing the right things on our behalf to be as efficient as possible to deliver services. So I really appreciate that. I also do agree with my colleagues that 7% year over year of increase, in addition to the fact that we know the human services needs are substantially greater than what we've been able to provide, also feels unsustainable. So we do need to figure out on the rate relief side, you spoke about eligibility. Can we re-examine the eligibility criteria and look holistically at the human services needs? Because I think that we learn a lot from the grants from human services. Those are likely the same families that are also struggling to pay their utility bills. So can we do more across the city of understanding what we might need to do to change the eligibility? So that would be one of my asks. And then agree about how can we get at more of the grants that might be available, doing some lobbying to hopefully increase some of that utility rate relief. And then lastly, I am also wondering about, I know in the Wilburton commercial area, we talked about waste to energy and how we tap into, so really thinking differently about energy, waste, leveraging waste, and is there more that we could be lobbying for to actually reduce the amount of solid waste being generated in the first place, right? So I know that there's been some work underway to, reduce the amount of packaging that comes in with our stuff. So how do we actually reduce the amount of waste? I believe that in our multifamily buildings, we still struggle with how we get more recycling so there's less garbage being just thrown in the landfill. So I'm wondering if it's a both and of looking at some of these other strategies with some other departments to both lower the demand of the waste and things that we are actually putting into our system, as well as the water conservation part, while we also deal with our aging infrastructure and reducing our rates. So those were my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, Mayor, thank you so much. Thank you, the staff, Lucia, Scott, great job. John, great job to you. Juanita, thank you so much for being here and representing the Environmental Service Commission. You are one of my favorite Bellevue Essential classmates. We did that together. Appreciate Councilwoman Lee. Great job, deliberation on this topic and just being in charge as a liaison for that commission. Appreciate you. Appreciate my fellow council member compassion, Councilmember Stoke, Councilmember Neuenhaus, Councilmember Zahn, and the rest that thinking about the increase the cost of people's living, and I'm very happy that you're all addressing that. I just have one question. I'm going to ask it for the, what was that the name, Memory Bank?
Memory Bank.
But I just wanted to make sure that it's going to be a hard question for me to explain due to the English level of me. But my whole point is, when are we going to transition from spending a lot of money, 80%, to just on aging infrastructure? At some point, we should be done with that. Like, my whole point is, I don't see that for the unseen future, we are just spending 80% of our budget on aging infrastructure. At some point, they are all should not be aging anymore. Is that the way I'm seeing is correct or not? Is there in your modeling at some point in future, 2030, 2035, 2040, we are done by, I know at the time that we are doing something right now is going to age 5 years from now, but at some point are we going to be, I know we are behind. Is there, if you continue investing 80% of our budget year over year on aging infrastructure, do we catch up at some point that we can just spend on the capacity for growth more, or operational efficiency more, or maybe we can just reduce the cost for our utility payer? So I'm going to ask this on the bank, but just wanted to make sure you understand what I am saying. I'm better at describing it right now. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. So it's hard to go last because I've heard everybody and I'm agreeing with a lot of what's being said here. So let me start with how much I appreciate the utility relief funding and all the different ways that we do that. That's just wonderful. I didn't realize how big that program was. But I too feel like people could lose their housing over utility bills, and increasingly, I mean, those are, I don't know if this is the right term, but they're like compounded increases, right?
That's an okay term. It works for the
Oh my gosh.
circumstance.
I mean, if we added that up, it is huge. So that makes me think about housing stability. And based on, Councilmember Zahn brought up a really interesting point about human services. I'm wondering if the 1590 funds could ever be used to do rate relief for some of the families who are facing housing instability. My question, and then also another thing that Councilmember Zahn sparked in me, it pains me that we are replacing aging wastewater treatment with old wastewater treatment facilities. Like, we're not doing anything new. It's not us, it's King County. But, in Denmark, they just fry everything. Doesn't matter if you put your shoe down the toilet. If it flushes, they'll just burn it at the other end and turn it into biofuel. And so it would just be wonderful to be able to maybe, I know they have one pyrolysis pilot project going on in King County. It would be wonderful to attract something like that into our city to see how we might manage our systems that way. Because one of the biggest costs to wastewater management is things that don't belong in the toilet. So that would eliminate all of that. So anyway, that's just a thought. But for the memory bank, I'm curious as to, here we are implementing state legislation to increase density in our neighborhoods. And I think about some of our older neighborhoods with older infrastructure. How are we planning if we get families who want to put an attached dwelling unit or a detached dwelling unit, or want to make, a triplex instead of a single-family home? How are we planning for that increased stress on the existing infrastructure? So you can answer that for me later. Okay. Well, that's great. Thank you. And thank you, Chair Vanya, for all the work that you've done for us. I know you have a little kid at home, at least one. So thank you
Yes.
for being out here tonight. So we'll let you go.
Thank you.
And we'll take a break. We'll rejoin at 5 till. Does that sound, or do you need a break? No, I see a no. Anybody need a break?
I always can have a break, but I appreciate if you guys don't want.
How about a 5-minute break? We'll get back together at 10 till. Okay. Okay, so we're resuming. We have one more section here on safe and efficient transportation system.
As we get started on safe and efficient transportation system, just wanted to give you a little bit of information about that as they pull it up on the screen. Again, this is information only, looking for any questions that you've got, see how we can help answer. For those of you following along, operating is in section 4S and capital is in section 5I of your book or the online variety. Safe and efficient transportation is probably one of our narrower strategic target areas. It is predominantly transportation, but actually finance and asset management supports and has some expenditures here for vehicle maintenance and things like that to support their organization. Currently, the base, which now includes maintenance, is about 76 million. And there are about $3 million of adjustments that are proposed through this budget process on the operating side. And the Transportation CIP proposes investments just in this biennium of over $112 million. And with that, I'm going to hand this off to Andrew and let him take it from here.
Well, thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, City Council members. And I also just want to acknowledge Mark Poe from the Transportation Department, who's in the audience. And I wanted to start off with the current budget, current operating budget, and some of the things that we accomplished over the past 2 years. The curb management plan, it completed the city's first curb management plan, this current biennium. Next year, we'll be moving on to taking a look at curb pricing. We're very successful in terms of grant funding coming into the city, $17.8 million in grant funding in 23 and 24, and we're anticipating another $11.5 million coming in later this year. And we're very lucky with the state legislature allocating $6.9 million for the Mountains to Sound Greenway Phase 3. We managed really complex right-of-way due to private development in the downtown and Bellevue areas. Some major projects that we did the traffic control for and managed: the 555, the 8, Bellevue 600, Avenue Bellevue, Bellevue Plaza, and then in the Spring District, the Bellevue Station, the big one, North Up Mixed Use. And also did a lot of work with permitting for small wireless facilities and 5G. If you recall, last August, we did have T-Mobile come in with the chamber, really complimenting on us on making significant progress with that level of permitting. 20 in construction permits currently, and another 13 that are in the pipeline. And then looking at the capital investments in this current budget that we had before, really a good time for us to talk about the TIFIA program and all the work that's done, really bringing in multimodal capacity and getting ahead of development in the Bellevue area. And watching those projects become completed was very meaningful. As you know, 124th Avenue is substantially completed, and we're pretty much midway through the 130th Avenue Northeast in the Bellevue area. Also in the 2024 overlay program, which John just mentioned, has moved into the operating budget. We've completed 28 miles of paving, upgraded 82 curb ramps, and as you know, paving is really critically important to keeping our streets and bike lanes safe and smooth. And of course, our ongoing support for Eastlink, working with our regional partners, seeing the number 2 line come on board, and then also anticipating further expansions next year into Seattle, then into downtown Redmond. So in the upcoming budget, some of the key operating investments, the update to the transportation facilities plan is something that's already been started. It's going to be completed in 25. The new also an update to the mobility implementation plan. We've got funding in the capital budget for smaller scale bike ped improvements. We want to do a public process in order to identify even more of them. We've gotten a lot of suggestions coming out of Bike Bellevue that could be really useful to document and move into project development. We are also continue to support our TDM work, transportation demand management work, to further offset growth in vehicle travel. And we'll be updating our Americans with Disability Act self-evaluation transition plan. This is really important work to show and demonstrate our commitment to ADA in our roadways and through our overlay programs. And we would like to continuing to support some of our regional partners in transit. As you know, the K-Line is a project that we are currently working on. A lot of work in transit coming up. We've got Stride Bus Rapid Transit, which will bring an additional layer of transit to the city, further reinforcing the city as being a transit hub. And we want to continue working with WashDOT for the widening of 405 through Renton. The project will create a dual express toll lanes for the entire system, which is very encouraging. Vision Zero Action Plan, I do want to express my condolences to the families of the 2 fatal collisions that happened on Saturday and yesterday. And unfortunately, we had no fatalities on our streets up until that point. We're really hopeful that we were able to continue that all the way through, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and it really is a tragedy. But here are the programs that fall under the umbrella of Vision Zero. We were awarded a $1.4 million SMART grant, strengthening mobility, revolutionizing transportation. This came in through the United States Department of Transportation. And the grant will explore real-time safety measures such as extending walk sign times if people are still in the crosswalk and other safety improvements. We're also awarded $2.8 million from the U.S. DOT for the Safe Streets for All grant, which will conduct road safety audits and will also examine speed cameras, providing us guidance so that we can implement a program that will be equitable, and that funding will be coming in for next year. And we'll also continue our other Vision Zero programs that we've had before, the Rapid Build Data Program, which analyzes through traffic cameras near misses and proposes traffic engineering solutions pretty much in real time. And we'll be embarking on an arterial speed management program as well that will be happening in 2025. And some of our work that supports neighborhoods, our neighborhood traffic safety program will continue to advance projects to help manage speeds and promote connectivity for our neighborhoods. This includes enhancing work with schools with the development of a Safe Routes to School program. The program will focus on providing safe alternatives and connections for people to be able to walk and bike to school. And the levy-funded neighborhood congestion reduction program will be building capacity improvements as well, primarily at the Eastgate interchange, and also creating turning an all-directional stop sign to a traffic signal up in the Lake Hills area near 156th. And lastly, our neighborhood sidewalk program will be building needed new sidewalks in Unatai, Bridle Trails, and in Newport. And then programs supporting bicycle and pedestrian improvements, project concepts to address performance target area gaps in our arterial network have been prepared through the Mobility Implementation Plan. And as mentioned earlier, trying to solicit additional projects as well for evaluation. They'll be referred to the Transportation Commission for consideration, the update in the Transportation Facilities Plan. And a really good news story for us in transportation was the substantial restoration of our maintenance budget, which had been cut since 2021 with COVID. This added 3 new FTEs and also brought back the funding for new maintenance infrastructure, maintenance and operation. Essentially, new roadways that are being built either by private development or through the CIP goes into a formula which results in increased funding for maintenance. And we do have a robust capital program coming in, the Grant Connection for 5 crossing from City Hall to East Rail. Mostly this will be design work. We did have grant funding in place too for the 124th Phase 4. We've completed design, but this is for right-of-way acquisition. And then Spring Boulevard Zone 3, which I think is important enough to have its own slide. This is really an important connection, the multimodal connection. We did get some grant funding for design, and we anticipate it will be completely designed by 2027. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to John.
Thank you. And as we transition to questions, I also wanted to add a comment in on the CIP overall for transportation. You will notice as you look at the CIP that the CIP curtails in the out years. That is a combination of both our current capacity from a financial standpoint, plus what you'll look at underneath that is transportation has gone through the hard work of identifying those next sets of projects that would come forward should there be additional funding, whether the tax revenue recovers or if council wants to consider and start talking about other revenues in the future. We've been very careful in being able to provide you with both, but also provide you with a balanced budget in this process. So we just wanted to touch on that very briefly as we hand back to you for questions.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, we'll start with Councilmember Newenhouse as liaison to Transportation Commission.
Thank you. Andrew, great job tonight. Really appreciate it. I don't have any questions. Just want to say my appreciation for this well thought out, thoughtful budget proposal. There are so many good things in this, and I too mourn the two individuals that we lost, these past couple of days. And unfortunately, we can't anticipate every decision or human nature, given what it is sometimes, unfortunately, but appreciate you saying that. As well as really appreciate a lot of things that I'm seeing here in terms of just to recap some of these investments from the public right away to the, as Andrew knows, the small wires facilities is something that I've been pushing for many years. So I'm glad to see that continues to be invested in, especially the 405 to rent, and critically important, the great investment of continuing the projects under the TIFIA loan. Obviously, that is something critically important as well. And then all those great regional partnerships that we have and continue to have and keep pushing forward on. And I think just recently we got some updates on like the K line, for example. So that is just all good stuff. The Vision Zero action plan, on that, I think some of my colleagues and I agree with them in terms of further pushing some of the funding there. That is so critical to making our streets as safe as possible. But I also think that you've got, again, going back to your thoughtful approach with this budget too. I think it is the right mix between all these different investments and projects ongoing that that budget number feels about right. Also appreciate the great focus on our neighborhoods. People are always very quick to tell me when a sidewalk needs a little bit of repair, but that's why I'm so glad to see the maintenance piece there. Actually, one question I may have is on the street cleaner. So if we had 2 additional ones, how many do we have total? And then can residents expect to see their street cleaned on a more consistent basis, or even more times a year? I don't know if you want to answer that or put that in the memory bank, but it
Yeah, I
might be a
believe
quick answer.
Look to Mark also. I think we have 1 now, and then adding 2 more
Yeah.
would end up increasing the amount that we can do by that much.
So 4? We'll have 4. Oh, that's fantastic, especially for cyclists, and especially during the winter months or after storms, and some of those major bike paths that are used that can sometimes easily get the debris on them from the surrounding trees. I personally really appreciate that.
Stormwater management as well.
Yeah, and exactly right. So overall, again, a great job. Really think this is right on point in terms of the overall transportation budget. And again, thank you and your team for putting such a terrific budget together. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Zahn.
Yes, thank you. I do appreciate the presentation and the budget. I think a lot about transportation really is safety for everybody. So mourning the 2 people whose lives were lost on our streets, and Vision Zero, especially in our high injury networks, is going to be so important for us to continue to double down on that. And really appreciate the fact that on slide 47, you included the slide about Vision Zero, because it is all of these pieces together. So I do wonder about our budget for educating for safe people, and the work we're doing around lowering our speeds, so kind of that safe speeds, safe streets, safe vehicles, and whether we have the right amount of investments for the amount of growth that we're seeing. Councilmember Newhouse earlier said, 35,000 more households and 70,000 more jobs. So that's a lot of people coming into our city. And although we're encouraging people to live, work, and play here, we know that until we address our upside-down affordable housing, we're still going to have a lot of people coming in from outside. So when I think about this budget, how are we doing with our multimodal investments? What are we doing with our first and last mile so that we encourage, as the 2-line connects to Seattle, getting more people coming in with other modes other than driving alone? And what are some other programs that we might be able to partner with the private sector, perhaps, and King County Transit to improve the amount of transit service to Bellevue? I think that's going to be an important piece. Really appreciate seeing traffic safety cameras on here. I would just really encourage us to do some pilots and move quickly so we can learn. When I think about a number of cities that I learned about in Australia where their safety cameras move around, because it's really intended to be a deterrent. Our goal is not to collect a bunch of money because people are driving in a way that is not following protocol, but it's really just creating that traffic calming and getting the right speeds and behaviors for. So if we can move even more quickly, I think that would be really important. I didn't see a lot in here about smart cities, AI, and technology. I know we're doing some of those. Just encourage us to continue to double down on those different opportunities to pilot and try things out. Really appreciate the ADA. I think that that plus the neighborhood sidewalk. I heard you talk about 3 neighborhoods. I did not hear Lake Hills. I do think that there are some areas where there's a lot of people perhaps walking on sidewalks that are not contiguous or needs to be replaced. So if we could look more holistically at the neighborhood sidewalk program and what we could do, like increasing the maintenance budget, so thank you for that. Let's see, I think I had one more thing. So in terms of investment to support growth, I would like us to revisit the financial capacity and stable funding, both for the renewal and replacement as well as those new pieces we're trying to do. I know we're going to continue to work on grants. That's great. With us nearly completing Spring District and the TIFIA that was done for that, do we want to talk about whether another TIFIA would make sense? Because there's a group of projects that are going to be needed, especially when we start to look at Wilburton commercial area. And also, I think we need to start talking about, do we need enough investments that a transportation benefit district discussion needs to be revisited with my colleagues? And then I almost forgot, so maybe we could put this in the memory bank back for utilities, that when I thought about TIFIA, I understand there's also a WIFIA, water infrastructure, and so that may be another way to look at how we pay for utilities from an investment standpoint is a WIFIA loan program. So those were my thoughts.
Good comments.
Thanks.
Councilmember Lee.
Okay, thank you. This is one of my favorite topics. Thank you. I'm glad we're doing a lot of things, and it's very important. We all know transportation is very important to our economy, to our well-being, to our mobility. That's why we, have a community as prosperous, viable as it is. So I agree with a lot of the comments that's already made, but I just want to emphasize a few. The one I'd like to ask is, I think you already mentioned it in your presentation, is the curbside management. You said it's already a pilot program you're working on. What's the status of that
the council adopted the plan last year, and the first implementation step of it is going to be an analysis to see whether or not paid parking would actually pencil out, having parking meters in the downtown and Bellevue area. So that's work that needs to happen. I don't know the answer to the question of whether or not it will, but that is something that we're going to be working on in 2025.
It's because of money funding or what?
Well, it's going to be an analysis to see, is there enough parking spaces in the downtown area, and how much would you have to charge in order to hire enforcement to go out and enforce people not parking in a paid parking space. So that's a whole study that's happening in 2025.
So do you have any sense when it will be completed?
What was that?
When it will be completed, the study?
By the end of the year.
Or the end of the year?
Yeah.
The end of 2024?
26.
26?
I mean 25.
25. Okay, so you know by end of 25. Okay. Second is people talk about potholes. We heard from the public communication. Because of the labor shortage, COVID, and all that stuff, quality control, shortage of, supply chain material. Is that a problem that when we
Can we
put a lot of?
clarify that the pothole that we were complaining about was on I-90?
Yeah, it's washed out.
But I don't, does our local road have any situation, problem that you have noticed?
Not that I noticed, but if there's ever, if somebody's observing potholes, they definitely call it in as a service, that we can.
Has that been a substantial increase, or you have?
No, I think that we're in good shape now with the, making our maintenance budget and overlay budget whole.
Okay, thanks. And also, I got briefed today on the speed limit, so reducing from 25 to 20, I thought it's a good idea. But we're talking about safety, public, traffic. One idea I was thinking about is, I know that in California, many cities have a stop sign at every intersection. Even though you cannot stop cars completely, but it would actually slow down cars, for sure, because when they see a stop sign, they slow down. So that might do the trick to slow people down. So something like that, you might want to take a look at it. And it costs money to put up more signs. In certain, not everywhere you should put that in, but maybe certain areas, certain roads that has problem with speeding. That might be something to consider. Okay. The one is, I already support is what Councilmember Zhang was talking about, education. I know there's many people now, especially young drivers, they don't understand, they don't care about safe driving practices. In the old days, you don't have to have rules. The people on the right-hand side always has the precedence, go first. Now they don't care. Yesterday, I was driving through a circle. I was going straight, and another car coming straight.
Councilmember Lee, can we just confine this to the budget discussion that we're
But
having?
what I'm talking about, education.
Okay.
Educating people how to drive. That's the most fundamental thing. Come on.
Duly noted.
I'm giving an example.
Okay.
If you believe me, say, yeah, it's done, then I will quit, I'll stop. But if you need some example, I'm giving you one.
Okay.
Instead of I go straight, they come straight, the guy start turning right ahead in front of me. I could go straight and hit him, right smack through the middle with the car. These guys don't know how to drive, okay? So education is important, rules of the road. Technology, I really believe in technology. We need to be looking at it. One thing to look at is, I have been advocating to have a direct check-in to the airport through TSA and all that, from downtown Bellevue through the airport. Many airports in the world.
I'm not sure what that has to do with this budget. It's a great idea, but it's not
You need money
really.
to do it.
Okay. How about, you can contribute these through email, Councilmember Lee? Okay?
How come when I talk,
This is
I have
kind of a
to?
free association moment.
Can I respond to that, please?
No, no, you cannot.
Okay.
Okay. Sidewalk, many places don't have sidewalk, so please, many neighborhoods don't have sidewalk, sustain, a lot more people are walking now, so please, okay? I don't, Tifia, last one. Tifia is not a grant, Tifia is just a loan.
Right.
We have to pay back. I'd rather focus our effort on grants, okay? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Stokes.
I think is a really good presentation and comprehensive and giving us really an idea of what's going on, how this is advancing on this. There are a lot of questions about all the issues, and, you know, the 20 mile an hour thing is something we could have a long conversation about. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. You know, they're going to have to go down from 60 to 20. It's going to be hard. But I think it's a really good presentation. There's some good comments and all. I don't have anything particularly at this point to add to that would not be out of the concept, the framework of what we're talking about tonight. So
Thank you.
very good work.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. You know, I think the focus, I think it is a very thoughtful approach, Andrew, so well done on that. But considering we're constrained with our budget, looking at maintenance, filling in gaps in the network, focusing on safety, I think that all makes a lot of sense. I mean, we can't do as much of what we want or frankly, what we need to do. We've had some discussions regarding the distribution of funds in the council contingency reserve. And I'm just wondering, you know, it's not a ton of money, but considering this is kind of an all-hands-on-deck type budget, just wonder if there are some projects that maybe, you know, part of that fund could be used to boost, and if you might just give that some consideration and get back to us on that. I do think, unrelated, but regarding utilities, we had a good discussion about some of the financial assistance programs. And just for the memory bank, you know, I wonder if some of the council contingency funds could be used to add to those programs and enhance them. So if you might also just add that in. I did also want to agree with Councilmember Zahn regarding a TBD. That to me just seems like something we need to do and that we should take a very serious look at in the new year. So that would be something that I would be very supportive of. You know, we have critical projects that we need to fund, and we have a lot of growth coming, as has been mentioned. And I just don't think we can wait for the next budget to address some of those things. So I think a TBD could be the answer. Some of these transportation issues we're just going to have to solve on our own. You know, we're not going to be able to get outside funding, and I think a TBD might really be a good approach. So just, you can put that in your own memory bank for the beginning of next year, whenever it's appropriate, but I think that's something that we really need to take a close look at.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. John, thank you so much. Andrew, great job. Thank you so much. I have one question that I'm going to ask in memory bank. Is easy about Vision Zero. But in your comment, you talk about the Spring Boulevard, and you mentioned the design would be end in 2017. What is the bottlenecks in this bike route design process that it takes that long to just be done with the design? Forget about the construction.
It's a lot of environmental factors out there, a lot of wetlands. Is a bridge that would have to occur. It's mostly the permitting process and that design process. It's a big project and it'll take time to design.
I completely understand. If we can expedite any way, please do, but I'm sure you're doing your best. Mayor, thank you so much.
Okay, well, I want to thank you very much for all the work you've done in the presentation tonight. And I'll tell you, hearing about the 2 lives that were lost underscores the importance of the work that we're doing in transportation and the work that we're trying to do to protect people whether they're driving, riding their bike, walking, riding a motorcycle, and it's just heartbreaking to have these incidents. So I'm really, it's happening right when it's starting to get dark again. I'm wondering if the light have anything to do, and if we're, prioritizing that. So just that's a thought. My question, and you can tell me in the memory bank, is on the ballot in November is the repeal of Initiative 2066. And I know that funding was paying for some projects. And so if that does get repealed, how is that going to affect our budget? So you can get back
It
to
will
us.
affect the budget, but definitely memory bank. We've got write-ups about it.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. Okay, well, the last thing is our Intergovernmental Affairs Monthly Update. There's no presentation, it's in the packet.
Thank you.
I think Genesee's here if anybody has any questions. I know Councilmember Neuenhouse, you had asked that something be included in the legislative agenda. Does anybody else have any comments or questions on our legislative work here? No? Okay. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you so much.